You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1094 1094 Chapter 263 Suyu entering the mansion 1. After chatting with Director Ho for a while, Suyu was in a much happier mood. It was the new year, and having someone to accompany him and talk to made his mood much better. Although he had a little less confidence in the Daming Mansion, when he thought about it, Zhu Tiandao was also a member of the Daming Mansion. He was also at the 9th level of the Sun and Moon, and was also a civilized master. Wasn't he also very good at killing people? What was there to say? It could only be said that some of the salted fish in the Daming Mansion were not all salted fish. Director Ho was also from the Sun and Moon. He should be pretty good, right? Director Ho chatted with him for a while and then said, Suyu, actually it's fine if you don't join the school. It's the same if you set up your own research institute. Suyu smiled and said, forget it. It's not very convenient to do it privately. In fact, I lack many things. I still need to further my studies. This was the truth. Suyu did not feel that he knew everything now. He was still far from it. Other people aside, the students like Hu Qiusheng in the Great Xia Manor had much more knowledge than Suyu. Hearing Suyu say this, Director Ho also smiled. This was also good. Very quickly, he said, do you want me to bring you to the capital city manor now? Maybe you can see the prosperity of the capital city manor. Forget it. Suyu shook his head and smiled. Walk slowly over. At the same time, you can familiarize yourself with the Daming Mansion. Director, if you want to go back, you can go back. Really, in the Daming Mansion, who dares to provoke me now? I still have a few demonic beasts with me. Director Ho did not reply. If you have not reached the Tiandu Mansion, what am I going to do? If I go back now, if something happens to you on the way, the mansion master will kill me. Since Suyu was not interested in going to the Tiandu Mansion now, Director Ho did not mind chatting with him. He quickly said, let's not talk about civilized masters. We are clear about some problems. In terms of combat strength, the civilized masters of the Daming Mansion do not have the advantage. Of course, there are many kinds of civilized masters in the Daming Mansion. This is something that the Great Xia Mansion cannot compare to. On the side of the Great Xia Mansion, divine writers are the mainstream. There are very few people from other factions. Suyu nodded. This was true. In the Great Xia Prefecture, regardless of whether it was a single or multiple divine writers, they all played a leading role at different times. The other factions, such as beast taming and weapon forging, were all subordinate positions. Director Ho smiled and said, don't think that the Daming King is a civilized master. The warriors of our Daming Prefecture are weak. On the contrary, there are many types of civilized masters, many theories involved, and many factions. The stronger our warriors are. In the Great Ming Mansion, there are 3 extremely powerful legions. The number 1 is the Great Ming Iron Cavalry Army. Suyu nodded, I've heard of it. The army that rides demon beasts to fight can be considered as cavalry. There are not many of them, but their combat strength is extremely strong. In the battlefield of the heavens, they are also a first-tier army. Rumors say that they can compete with the Dragon Martial Guards. Dragon Martial Guards? Director Ho shook his head, if you say that the Dragon Martial Guards are the Bright Guards, then they are courting death against the Great Ming Iron Cavalry Army. The strong ones of the Dragon Martial Guards are the Dark Guards. There are many Dark Guards, and they are almost at the beginning of their rise. They are the elites of the Great Xia Mansion. Suyu nodded again. He did not know about the Dark Guards before, but he only found out about them not too long ago. Xia Wen and Xia Wu were actually members of the Dark Guards. They were very strong, at the Shanhai realm. The Sun and Moon Elder from Nanyuan was also a strong Dark Guard. Our great Ming cavalry does not have many people, only 5,000 of them. They are the soldiers in the sky. Ling Yun is the centurion, and Shanghai Thousand Captain has 3 generals, Sun and Moon. They are fully equipped, and their armor, weapons, divine talismans, pills, and mounts are all top-notch. Su Yu said in shock, 5,000 people. That's right. Director Ho said smugly, this is a force comparable to the Dragon Marshal's secret guards, and it has been accumulated by the Great Ming Palace for over 300 years. In fact, in the warrior corps, they are ranked at the very top. They are not weaker than the Dragon Marshal guards, and they are not weaker than Great Qin's Iron Eagle guards. Now, he finally had a chance to show off, and he laughed as he said, soldiers, everyone has a mount, and with the one-horned golden bull as the base, they can charge into battle and win. One-horned golden bull. Su Yu looked at the stupid bull that was eating, and the Diamond Mountain bull quickly looked up innocently. He quickly said, there are many bull clans, and I know about the one-horned golden bull. It has sharp horns and can charge into battle. However, it's not ranked very high, and if you really want to rank it, it's within the top 1,000. This was not bad. Su Yu was slightly surprised. In the Great Xia Manor, he really did not pay much attention to this. The Great Ming Manor actually had such an iron cavalry army. Director Ho was pleased and smiled, this is one of them, an elite army. 2, a regular army, the Heavenly Dao Army. Su Yu was stunned for a moment. Director Ho coughed lightly and said in a low voice, they changed their name decades ago. Doesn't the Great Xia Manor have the Dragon Marshal Guards? The Lord of the Xia Manor has the Dragon Marshal Guards. Our Lord is also a person who cares about his reputation. He understood. Seeing that Xia Longwu had changed his name, he changed his name. The Heavenly Dao Army could be considered the existence of the Demon Suppression Army. The Heavenly Dao Army has quite a number of soldiers. They have 500,000 soldiers and are equipped with conventional military services. They can be considered a second-rate top-tier army. In terms of strength, there is not much of a difference between them and the Demon Suppression Army. However, their fighting spirit is slightly weaker. Therefore, the Demon Suppression Army is currently considered a first-rate army. Thirdly, the Great Ming Army, which is also known as the Prefectural Army, has quite a number of soldiers. They have 500,000 soldiers. Just like the Heavenly Axiom Army, the Prefectural Army is stationed within the borders of the Great Ming Mansion. The conventional military equipment is slightly weaker in terms of fighting spirit, but their equipment is all first-rate. He had mentioned that their fighting spirit was slightly weaker a few times. Su Yu could not help but say, Director, their fighting spirit is weak, aren't the soldiers of the Great Ming Mansion not weak? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1095. 1095 Chapter 263 Su Yu entering the mansion 2. It's not too bad. Director Ho didn't know what to say. He thought for a moment before saying, it's a little, relying on external objects to fight with real weapons is always a little fake. Our Daming Mansion is a little problematic. Before the battle, the civilized masters of Daming Mansion would give a bunch of random things to the military. Director Ho smiled bitterly and said, for example, during the battle 3 years ago, the Heavenly Dao Army encountered a group of 10,000 Celestial Guards. At that time, both sides were engaged in a fierce battle. In the end, the garrison civilization masters found some things out of nowhere. By accident, they released billions of flying insects and almost devoured both sides completely. This caused both armies to flee. Until now, that place is still a land of death. Countless flying insects have devoured everything and are sweeping across the heavenly battlefield. I heard that there are even invincible people who are going to deal with it. Helpless. Director Ho was also speechless. The Daming Manor was not weak, but when it came to war, his opponents had a headache, and the Daming Manor itself had a headache. Some garrison civilized masters would often do strange things. For example, that bug almost swallowed the Heavenly Tao army. It did not differentiate between friend and foe and was just fooling around. Su Yu did not say anything. The three strong armies were not weak in terms of overall strength, but their fighting spirit was not strong. In war, they preferred to rely on external things and wait for the civilized masters to take out their treasures to fight. Then does the Daming Mansion have many enemies in the heavenly battlefield? This, Director Ho thought for a moment before saying, it's hard to say. The heavenly battlefield is more chaotic. You can roughly divide it into 4 war zones. The humans are stationed in the Eastern War Zone, the Celestials in the Western War Zone, the demons in the Southern War Zone, and the Celestials in the Northern War Zone. Of course, this is the general division. The other races are all mixed into these war zones. There are 3 purposes for fighting in the heavenly battlefield. First, to destroy the enemy. Second, to search for relics. Third, to invade the smaller races. The first one knew, and the second one, Su Yu, was a little surprised. There are relics in the heavenly battlefield. The Starry Mansion is one. You know this, right? He smiled, very quickly, he said, as for the third one, it's very simple. Some small clans sometimes accidentally open a passage to the Grand Heavens battlefield. Once they are discovered, powerful clans will attack. Although these small clans usually have a restraining power, the restraining power is not very effective. Director Ho explained, for example, some small clans occupy a world, but the strongest in this world is only the mountain and sea realm. When the sun and moon of the god and devil clans enter, they are suppressed to the mountain and sea realm. So what? You are not strong enough. If I suppress you, I will do the same to you. Take them down easily. These small worlds often have some rare treasures. Some people will even directly refine a world. Therefore, in the Grand Heavens battlefield, once those small clans are discovered, even if you close the passage, they may be broken through and invaded. Therefore, in the Grand Heavens battlefield, the small clans will rely on some powerful clans and pay tribute to them. Su Yu was silent for a while before he said, is it the same for the human race? Yes, the human race will also invade some small worlds. Director Ho smiled faintly and said, otherwise, how can we maintain the expenditure of these countless armies? Just relying on killing won't do. All the great manors have invaded some small worlds. These words. The shadow opened his mouth and said, it's like this. In the past, our shadow world had also encountered an invasion. However, our shadow world had quite a number of experts, and the suppressive force was very strong. The demon race lost 3 sun-moon realm experts, and one of them was invincible when they attacked. They were repelled by our race, and after that, they acknowledged the independent status of the shadow world. Isn't the shadow race one of the top 100 races? Su Yu asked, there are people who dare to invade here. The shadow said faintly, the top 100, is actually a general term. Usually, with an invincible king overseeing things, they are regarded as one of the top 100 races. Even if they are ranked in the top 100, they can still be considered as one of the top 100 races. The shadow race only has the shadow ancestor who is invincible. There are too few who are invincible, and they are not considered strong among the top 100. That was why they dared to invade. It was not like they were humans. 300 years ago, so many unrivaled races suddenly appeared and invaded the great races. They were almost beaten into a daze. Director Ho smiled, he explained, in the heavenly battlefield, races with unrivaled existences are usually able to stand on their own. Even powerful races like gods and demons, including humans, have quite a few unrivaled existences. However, when they invade other people's great worlds, those with powerful suppressive forces are usually able to suppress you by a level. When an invincible person enters, they are also suppressed into the sun and moon. With an invincible person holding down the fort, you have to send at least 10 invincible people to attack them. Only when they are suppressed into the sun and moon and besiege you will you have a chance to attack them. It's not worth it. The losses are too great. Therefore, races with invincible existences were all powerful races. They were not as powerful as Suyu, but if they retreated back to their expanse cosmoses, Suyu would have to pay 10 times the price to attack them. It was not worth it. Then the human race. Suyu frowned and said, there are so many invincible human beings. Even if they don't have the ability to suppress them, the other party will suffer a great loss. Why do they have to keep staring at the human race? This may be related to some rumors in the ancient times. In addition, some relics of the human realm, including some inheritances, are also coveted by various races. Director Ho explained, to be able to produce dozens of invincible relics in one go, if it were you, would you covet them? I wouldn't covet them. Director Ho was speechless. If he didn't know how to speak, then don't say anything. Human realm relics are definitely not fully developed. Some powerful relics may not have been revealed until now. On this point, if you say that experts don't covet them, then it's impossible. In addition, there are no restrictions. If they can use their full strength, then it's normal for them to attack the human realm. In addition, it's said that there are some special things in the human realm that are quite attractive to powerful races such as gods and demons. Therefore, they have been watching us all these years. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1096. 1096 Chapter 263 Suyu entering the residence 3. Suyu nodded. He thought for a moment and asked, I've always been curious about one thing. Director Ho, do we humans have the ability to suppress others when we go to other great worlds? If the others did not reach the human realm, then what about the humans going to other great worlds? This is another reason why the humans were attacked. No. Director Ho smiled and said, the humans are special, and the human realm is also special. Therefore, this is also an important reason why the other races fear us and suppress us. Even if you, a human realm expert, enter other great worlds, you won't have the ability to suppress us. If I don't suppress the humans, won't the humans become the rulers of the heavens? Director Ho shook his head and sighed. He said helplessly, humans love peace, and they won't easily attack other great races. Why bother? Silence. At that moment, Suyu somewhat understood why the God-fiend race could win over so many allies. Damn it! You humans are invincible even after entering other expanse cosmoses. Doesn't that make the top 100 races worried? Of course they're worried. The gods and demons are coming. 1 for 10. They don't dare to do so. You humans are here. You can even fight one-on-one. Then we'll have to exterminate you humans. Suyu thought for a moment and said, are most of the top 100 races now our enemies? Yes. Director Ho smiled and said, there's nothing we can do. We didn't want to, but humans are born special. What can we do? We can't exterminate the humans, right? Therefore, many of the large manners have to be a little gentler to prevent others from thinking that we want to invade. The great Xia manners have been fighting so fiercely. Do you think that we won't be targeted? Even large manners that are too aggressive will be easily targeted. Only today did Suyu understand just how much the human race was feared. It was no wonder that the 10,000 races often worked together to prevent the human race from becoming invincible. Everything came from fear. Humanity also had allies, but most of the time, those who were invincible were unwilling to form an alliance with humanity. There was no other reason. Humanity had sufficient deterrence and suppressive force against them, which would make these invincible races worried. The gods were powerful, but the key was that they were not willing to exchange one of their 10 invincible cultivators for one of yours. As for humans, there was no need for 10 of them. If two of them entered realm, they would be in trouble. Director Ho and Su Yu chatted for a long time. They talked about Great Ming Mansion, the human realm, the heavenly battlefield, and the other great worlds. He had been to many places. Director Ho was actually very old. He looked young, but there were not many other places in Great Ming Mansion. There were many old people, and many of the powerful warriors who had opened a mansion with Great Ming King were still alive. However, Great Xia Mansion was different. They had fought for many years, and there were many powerful warriors of the new generation. Many experts from the older generation had died in battle. The Daming Manor, Director Ho, and Nyo, as well as some of the other sons and moons, were mostly born in the early stages of the opening of the manor. In the past few decades, no experts had been born. To put it nicely, they had a deep foundation, but to put it bluntly, they were all green and yellow. The Great Xia Manor was the same, but the so-called green and yellow of the Great Xia Manor referred to the new generation. The real new generation, for example, those under 50 years old. As for the Daming Manor, that would have to be extended by 50 years. Those under 100 years old would be considered experts from the new generation. On the last night of the 350th year of the Anping calendar, Su Yu spent his time chatting. He was able to overcome many of his homesickness. 351st year, 1st month, 1st day. On this day, Su Yu set off once again, heading towards the capital city manor. As for Su Yu, the Great Xia Manor, and the battle over Shan Duo, it started to spread amongst the people. The Great Xia Manor is ruthless. Just yesterday, they killed a large number of experts. A large number of people from the mountains and seas died. TSK, there are so many experts from the Great Xia Mansion. He killed so many, and there's still a large number. I heard that Su Yu came to the Great Ming Mansion. This guy is also ruthless. He killed so many mountains, seas, sun, and moon in one go. What's a sun and moon? Some people were curious, and an old man laughed and gossiped. Above the sky is Ling Yun, and above Ling Yun is the mountains and seas. Only after breaking through the mountains and seas can one see the sun and moon. It's like the sun and moon hanging in the sky, suppressing the world. For example, our mansion master is a sun and moon realm expert. Just like Su Yu, many young people had not seen much of the world. They did not know what the sun and moon were. Of course, on the side of the Daming Mansion, Ling Yun and the mountains and seas were generally clear. Unlike Su Yu, Nan Yuan was too remote and too weak. Walking on the road, Su Yu listened to the discussions by his ears and smiled. The Xia family had actually made a ruthless move. Of course, it wasn't for Su Yu's sake. The Xia family still had to thank Su Yu, because Su Yu had handed them a knife. Without Su Yu as a reason, the Xia family's wanton killing of those fellows would have probably caused the entire human realm to rebuke and oppose them. But now, because of the video, the entire human realm's single Divine One faction had all shut up. No one spoke. Even if there were some complaints, they were only said in secret. No one publicly criticized the Great Xia Manor. Killing so ruthlessly, and not many people making a sound, this was not the style of the Single God Language faction. Not to mention the Single God Language faction, if they dared to kill like this normally, the entire civilized master field would rebel and oppose. Now, the sun and moon had betrayed, colluding with the devil god, and more than a dozen mountain and sea realm traders. With such a large-scale rebellion, the Xia family would only be looked down upon if they did not kill people. After killing so many people, even if some people were dissatisfied, they would have to hold it in. The waiter Xia is really good. He turned the situation around in an instant and even cleaned up a bunch of disobedient fellows. Su Yu laughed. Lord Xia Ho still had a few tricks up his sleeve. Of course, it was probably Xia Longwu who made the decision. At this moment, the Great Xia Manor had been filled with people for the past few days. The people of the Great Xia Manor didn't feel that they had killed too many people. On the contrary, their blood was boiling. They had killed well, and they had killed beautifully. The people of the Great Xia Manor were very proud. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1097. 1097 Chapter 263, Su Yu's Entry 4. They felt that it was all the doing of these rats, and it wasn't the Great Xia's doing. Now, the spearhead was no longer directed at the Xia family, but instead, they were going all out. Recently, they had been crazily wiping out the myriad religion within the Great Xia's territory. In these 2 days, more than 10 strongholds had been destroyed, and more than 100 people had been captured. The beheading journey had begun once again. It had to be said that it was still useful for the Xia family to keep some of the strongholds of the 10,000 clans. If there was nothing to do, they could just kill a few of them to appease the anger of the people. There was a reason why the 10,000 clans did not dare to spread the news in the Great Xia Manor. Too many people had died, and the deaths were too tragic. This was the nearest big city to the Tiandu Manor. The next big city would be the Tiandu Manor. It was about 500 miles away from here. Su Yu walked down from the Swan Ni's body. The Swan Ni was covered in dust and did not emit any golden light at the moment. The pedestrians did not care too much about it. Su Yu walked into a restaurant. After the new year, the restaurant could be considered to be quite popular and lively. At this moment, there was actually a storyteller in the restaurant. Su Yu had just gone up to the second floor when he heard the old man clap his hands in shock. His tone was agitated as he said, speaking of which, Su Yu quickly reversed the situation. With a heavenly thunder 100 strikes, he killed Zhou Pingsheng until he flew backwards and bled profusely. On the second floor, some customers were listening. Someone interrupted with a smile, "Don't talk nonsense. What heavenly lightning 100 strikes? How did you know?" "Nonsense. If you don't want to hear it, don't listen." The storyteller said excitedly, "How did I not know? I was near Xinglua Mountain that day. How could I not hear Su Yu shouting? Nonsense. I remember that you were reading here that day. You're just bickering." The storyteller said angrily, "I was in the 36th mansion that day, and I was in the sleepwalking human realm. How could this human realm be hidden from me?" Everyone laughed out loud. The storyteller did not care and quickly continued, "Su Yu has probably entered the capital city mansion by now. A storm is brewing in the capital city mansion. Those who came from the Great Xia mansion are all killers. They have the temperament to kill Ling Yun. I heard that Su Yu is itching to kill as long as he doesn't kill anyone. Everyone, if there are children in the Tiandu mansion, please inform them that Su Yu is 8 feet tall and can kill people like a weed." "Father, how do you know that he is 8 feet tall?" Su Yu smiled and said, "Although that image did not show his face, judging from his height, he is only the height of a normal person." "What does a young brat like you know?" The storyteller smiled and said, "That is his heaven and earth transformation technique. I have seen his true body before. His height is comparable to that of the giants." Su Yu could not help but laugh. "All right, I don't know. I am 8 feet tall, and I kill people like a weed, all right." This damning manner was really free. This was obviously a bullshit story, yet a group of people were still listening to it. That video had probably spread throughout the human realm. These people had probably seen it before, yet they still insisted on listening to the storyteller's story. They all knew that it was fake, but they still loved listening to it. The storyteller did not care about him. He continued, "The matter of Su Yu ends here. After he massacres the capital city's prefecture, we can continue our conversation. Today, let's talk about Bai Junsheng, one of the 8 handsome men of the capital city. The day before yesterday, this Bai Junsheng soared into the sky and instantly reached the 3rd level. The day before yesterday, he shouted that he wanted to catch up to his cousin Bai Feng. Yesterday, he found out that Su Yu was Bai Feng's disciple, and today, he claimed that he was Su Yu's uncle. He took the opportunity to knock on the door and beat up one of the 8 handsome men, Zhu Hongliang. Zhu Hongliang wanted to retaliate, but that Bai Junxing roared, "My nephew is Su Yu. If you dare to retaliate, your life will be in danger." TSK, that Zhu Hongliang was so scared that he fled in panic. Su Yu was speechless. Was this for real? Bai Junxing? A member of the Bai family? Zhu Hongliang, could he still be a member of the Zhu family? This so-called Great Ming Manor's 8 handsome men couldn't possibly be so boring, right? Who is your nephew? Below the stage, a customer laughed and said, "What is Zhu Hongliang afraid of? Beat him up. Doesn't he have a mountain and sea demon? Let him out and beat him up, Bai Junxing." Ha ha ha. Many people burst into laughter. Stop fooling around. That mountain and sea demon Zhu Hongliang only knows how to eat and does nothing else. You want that demon to beat someone up? It's fine if he gets beaten up. The Daming Manor once again let Su Yu experience something new. What mountain and sea demon? Was it that difficult to beat him up into the air? Moreover, this Zhu Hongliang couldn't even beat Bai Junxing. His strength was probably not that great either. Did he subdue the mountain and sea demon himself, or did his family subdue him? As he was thinking, his heart suddenly moved. He heard the storyteller say with a smile, "Speaking of this mountain and sea demon, I have to say a few words. Although his strength isn't that great, and he doesn't know how to hit people, his defense is strong. He eats a lot, and his skin is rough and his flesh is thick. That day, I saw a sun and moon realm expert slash down with his sword. That demon cried out and went back to sleep, completely unharmed. It's also because of this that I've been determined to be a mountain and sea demon. That's enough. Not to mention, if this demon can still hit people, then it won't be a mountain and sea, it'll be a sun and moon." Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. Could he be talking about an iron-eating beast? Its defense was invincible, and its attack power was almost zero. He had wanted to ask Xia Huyo to look for it, but he hadn't found it. It was almost impossible to see it on the battlefield of the heavens, and there were too few of them. Su Yu wanted to look for this thing because if his physical body flew into the air, he would need to cast his physical body and transform. This iron-eating beast's physical body was almost invincible. Perhaps it was due to some talent or cultivation technique. Casting body technique was also extremely precious. Mountain Sea Realm? If it was the Mountain Sea Realm, it would be a little strong. Ling Yun's was still alright, so he could try to devour the essence blood. After listening for a while, Su Yu shook his head. After finishing his meal, he got up and brought the Swan Ni downstairs. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1098. 1098 Chapter 263 Su Yu entering the Mansion 5. Very soon, Su Yu rode on the Swan Ni and left. At this moment, on the second floor, there were suddenly sounds of exhaling in unison. A customer complained, "I say, old man, are you stupid? You still dare to talk back? Isn't that Su Yu? He scared me to death." The killing intent was boiling across the air. Fortunately, I didn't lose my temper. If we were to slaughter the restaurant, wouldn't we be finished? The storyteller also said gloomily, "I can see that. Didn't I change the topic immediately?" He even flattered him by saying that he killed Zhou Pingsheng in 3 moves and killed the enemy beautifully. If it weren't for me, all of you would have died. It's all thanks to me that this murdering maniac didn't kill anyone. Then. The storyteller wiped his forehead and said, "Didn't I say it specifically?" Bai Junxing said that he was his uncle. I saw that his killing intent was boiling. This Bai Junxing is finished. Even if he doesn't die, he'll be crippled. Let's get someone to send a message and let him run. This fellow bullied my granddaughter a few days ago, but he was killed by Suyu. That's not appropriate. You old man, you're so scheming. I'm borrowing someone else's knife to kill him. Forget it, Suyu just went to the Tiandu mansion, so he might not dare to kill anyone. After all, he's his teacher's cousin. The Tiandu mansion is about to change after the murderer entered the mansion. It's not that exaggerated, it's to cultivate character. *T, your family cultivated character to kill Ling Yun. There were gasps. Indeed, this wasn't cultivating character. The Tiandu mansion was about to fall into chaos. In the next moment, a customer laughed and said, "Who cares? We eat our food. What does it have to do with us? But don't tell me that Suyu isn't that ferocious looking. He looks quite good." Shallow. How can you judge a person by his appearance? But then again, his looks aren't bad. My daughter is also in the capital city. If we were to summon her back home, TSK, guarding the main entrance would be a miracle. At this moment, Suyu had already left. Otherwise, based on these people, he would have beaten up a few of them today to vent his anger. The fellows from the Daming Manor were really boring. Swan and I sprinted all the way. A few hours later, a huge city stood in front of him. An incomparably huge city wall. Different from the Great Xia Manor, the Great Xia Manor did not have a city wall. There were only a few openings and checkpoints. As for the Tiandu mansion, they had built a city wall that was dozens of meters tall. Before Suyu could get close to the city wall, he saw a shocking scene. An incomparably huge demonic beast with a ferocious aura was sprinting towards the city gate. Suyu was shocked. Demonic beast attack. He did not see its owner. Was this a wild beast? Just as he was thinking, that huge demonic beast actually stopped in its tracks. The place where its stomach was suddenly opened up. In the next moment, more than 10 people walked out from the demonic beast's stomach. Someone turned his head to look at Suyu, seeing that he was riding on a swan eni. The swan eni appeared very small at this moment. He shook his head as if he had some sympathy for it. It was so poor. Ignoring Suyu, the leader waved his hand, and the huge demonic beast instantly shrank. In the next moment, it turned into a small piece of metal and was put into the other party's arms. "Brother Wang, we've entered the city." That person greeted the guards and quickly left with the boys and girls. Suyu vaguely heard someone say, "Did you see that? That guy outside just now, he's from outside, right? He seemed to be scared when he saw our riding beast and wanted to run away. He's so silly." "Yeah, he's from outside. He's so silly. He's riding a small demon beast. It's obvious that he doesn't have any money. He probably couldn't afford to buy a riding beast, so he went to the wild to catch a small demon beast. How pitiful. Yeah, he's not old either. He looks quite pitiful. F***ck. Suyu was dumbstruck. F***ck. Am I being looked down on? I'm poor. I'm pitiful. The demonic beast I'm riding is trash. Swan and I, one of the top 100 species, soaring 9th stage realm. You bunch of temperamental, Qianjun, and even a few Kai Yuan realm cultivators. Are you looking down on me? Holy sh**t. Also, that riding beast is actually a puppet. Holy sh**t, I thought it was a real demon beast. It looks so real. Suyu looked at the grey swan eni beneath him and sighed. It seemed so. The swan eni was so small and so grey. It looked so pitiful. It didn't have any cards to play. Compared to that huge riding beast, it seemed really useless. Beneath him, the swan Ni's eyes were lonely. I'm very weak. I'm a little wild demon. Believe it or not, I'll swallow all of you in one gulp. I'm a great demon at the 9th level of the soaring heavens realm. I was a genius great demon that entered the Starry Manor in the past and killed an invincible inheritor. Are you calling me trash? This fellow from the Daming Manor really has no discernment. Suyu laughed and didn't think anymore. He rode the swan Ni towards the city gate. Interesting. This Daming Manor was a little interesting. Seeing was better than hearing 100 things. From Suyu's point of view, this Mount Beast was a good thing. He would have to get one when he turned back. In front of him, the huge words, Tiandu Mansion, were hanging. The guards guarding the gate were not weak, but they were not that solemn. Suyu had just arrived. They seemed to have heard some kind of voice transmission. In the next moment, the huge city gate suddenly opened. There was a side gate beside the main gate. Previously, those people had used the side gate. But at this moment, the main gate opened. The guards at the gate instantly became serious. Master Su, please enter the city. Master Su. Suyu smiled. Around him, many passers-by looked at him in surprise. Who is it? They actually opened the main gate. Shanghai realm. Is this the treatment of Shanghai, or a high-level researcher? Master Su, he's so young. I've never heard of him. It can't be Suyu, right? The moment these words left his mouth, silence fell. The genius of the great Xia Manor, Suyu, had entered the capital city. Suyu didn't bother with him. He got off the swan Ni and stepped into the city. He took a deep breath. I've arrived at the capital city. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1099. 1099 Chapter 264, The Magical Daming Mansion 1. Tiandu Mansion, City Lord's Mansion. People were gathering. Ninth Highness, Suyu has entered the city. 8th Princess, Suyu has entered the city. Outside the city lord's main hall, guards and palace maids were running around to inform the princesses that the killing maniac Suyu had arrived. At this moment, in the meeting hall, Zhu Tiandao smiled and said, "Everyone, Suyu has entered the city." In the main hall, there was an old man who said with an indifferent expression, "Manor head, it's fine if Suyu enters the city. Since you've summoned us here, don't tell me you want us to go and welcome Suyu. Wasn't it too much? No matter how talented he was, it was just to cultivate his character. Everyone couldn't be bothered with him. Suyu could do whatever he wanted. Wasn't it good for them to stay out of each other's way? Why were they calling for us? No, I've already sent someone to summon Suyu into the manor. Let's meet up and we'll be colleagues from now on." Everyone was speechless. Colleagues? Wasn't this a little too fast? He was still a student in the Great Xia Manor. Manor head, this isn't appropriate, right? A brawny man frowned and said, "You mean to ask Suyu to take up a post in the Great Ming Manor? There's nothing inappropriate about it." Zhu Tiandao chuckled and said, "He's in the Great Xia Prefecture. He was applying for the title of researcher previously. Coincidentally, he came to Daming Prefecture. I've already made an agreement with the Strong Education Department that he, Suyu, will be a researcher in the future. Let's see if he wants to put his name on the Zhu family's research institute." In the main hall, an old man yawned and said, "Sure, he's done putting his name on it. He has created a fitting method. Regardless of whether it was done by him or not, putting his name on it isn't a problem. Anyway, putting his name on the Zhu family's research institute. Manor head, our various research institutes don't accept people. We don't have any objections to calling him a member of your family. Just don't get involved in our matters. Who has the time to pay attention to him?" Zhu Tiandao was helpless. "Everyone, do you know that the Xia family almost fell out with me because of this fellow? It's not because he escaped from the Great Xia Manor, but because the Great Xia Manor regrets it and is unwilling to let him go." Although the path of the enlightened masters in the Great Ming Manor is strong, they're not good at attacking and killing. Below the stage, someone said in surprise, this civilized master shouldn't have gotten involved in the path of attacking and killing. As the saying goes, there's a specialty for every profession. Attacking and killing are the matters of the fighters. Bulsh *T. Zhu Tiandao cursed, Bulsh *T. You bunch of old geezers, it's fine if you're lazy, but now look at how the younger generation of the Great Ming Mansion has been brought up by you guys. Don't you know what's going on? Suyu entered Daming Manor because I wanted to see if I could turn the situation around. I'm warning you bunch of old bastards. If you don't want to work or fight, that's your business. You're not allowed to get involved in Suyu's business. The group of people closed their eyes and did not say a word. They pretended not to hear anything. It's up to you. We don't care anyway. Whoever is willing to get involved with Suyu will get involved. They're not going to get involved anyway. Suyu intends to build another primordial spirit research institute. Zhu Tiandao said, the strong nurturing department will allocate a portion of the funds. As for the remaining information, resources, and manpower, each family will contribute a little. Cough cough. In the crowd, an elder said, Manor Head, this isn't appropriate, right? It wouldn't be a problem to allocate a portion of the funds, but to expect everyone to contribute all the money, this isn't good, right? No one's research institute is funded by outsiders, right? If the Manor Head doesn't lack money, he can pay for it himself. Help Suyu build the research institute, and we'll pay for it. That's not good. Your old Zhu family has money, so you can pay for it yourself. Zhu Tiandao couldn't be bothered with it, forget about the money. I'm talking about some special resources, if you need them. Everyone, don't think that I, Zhu Tiandao, am making a mountain out of a molehill. All of you are people of this path, so you should understand how great the benefits are. Suyu said earlier that he wants to deduce the method of merging the divine aperture, including the primordial spirit aperture. I think he has a chance of success. Once these words were said, the elders in the main hall looked at each other for a long while. Someone said, this. There is hope. Actually, there are quite a number of people in the residence who have studied these things. It is difficult to say if they need other things. Some information can be provided, including some manpower. In any case, there are a few old fellows who are about to die. Why don't we send them over? Zhu Tiandao's heart was tired. The person who spoke coughed lightly and said, they are all knowledgeable people. It is just that their strength is a little weak. There is nothing we can do about this. There are a few old fellows who are almost 300 years old. Their strength has just soared and they are already at the end of their lives. We also have no way to extend their lives. Why don't we send them over to Suyu's side to see if they can revive from the dead? Who knows, they might have an epiphany and enter the Lingyun Mountains and seize. Zhu Tiandao was at a loss for words. He had said the same thing to Suyu the last time. He nodded and said, all right, the 3 great academies. Draw up a list for me later and see if Suyu wants it. As he said this, his eyes moved slightly. Many of the elders turned their heads to look outside as well and started to watch the commotion. Watching gossip, we like it. These days were too boring. It was not bad to watch the commotion. At the same time, outside the city lord's mansion, Suyu followed a curious imperial guard as they walked forward. In his heart, he was speechless. This fellow in front of him has had enough. Don't keep turning your head to look at me like I'm a monster. At this moment, the huge palace door appeared in front of him. The door opened, and on both sides were the Zhu family's imperial guards. There were many powerhouses. Suyu even felt Ling Yun's presence, but he didn't care too much about it. He was someone who had seen the world. He had seen the fall of the sun and moon a few times. Just as the guard was about to lead him in, he suddenly said, Master Su, trouble is here. Su Yu was slightly startled. Trouble? This was the Zhu family's main entrance. Where did the trouble come from? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1100. 1100 Chapter 264, The Magical Daming Mansion 2. The next moment, a glint appeared in their eyes. At this moment, more than 10 men and women walked out of the palace gates. Some were young, some were big, but they were all considered young. The older ones looked to be in their 20s and 30s, while the younger ones looked to be only 4 or 5 years old. Were all the descendants of the old Zhu family here? At this moment, the group of people looked at Su Yu as if they were monkeys. Some were surprised, some were strange, some were depressed, some were enlightened, and some were disappointed. Sister, eighth sister, is that the great demon King Su? He doesn't seem as fierce as ninth brother. Ninth brother, is that Bai Juanqing's nephew? Did Bai Juanqing use him to scare you? Ninth brother, can you beat him? The group of people spoke one after another. They had probably forgotten that Su Yu was still alive. The Zhu family's fourth generation only had 3 direct descendants. The fourth generation, which was the generation of Zhu Tiandao's grandson, was from Xia Huyo's generation. This so-called ninth brother should be ranked according to the fourth generation. In fact, Zhu Tiandao's grandson and granddaughter weren't considered direct descendants. Only his grandson and granddaughter were counted. His grandson and granddaughter weren't surnamed Zhu either. They just lived in the Zhu family. Su Yu had done some homework before he came. Of course, he wasn't too clear about the specifics. At this moment, he looked at the group of people. There were many men and women. The leader was a man and a woman. Both of them were very young. The man, with one look, he could tell that he was a descendant of Zhu Tiandao. His appearance, it was hard to explain in a word. Xia Huyo was considered a little fatty, but he was strong and sturdy. However, the leader in front of him was really fat. The fat type. Broad-headed and broad-faced, or in other words, fat-headed and big-eared. The woman might not be a descendant of the Zhu family. Even if the big fatty was cut into 2, he would probably be fatter than this girl. This was also the 8th sister and 9th brother that the children mentioned. Su Yu made a judgment. It was probably Zhu Tiandao's biological grandson and biological granddaughter. Both parties looked at each other. The fatty, who was panting as he walked, bared his teeth and said with a smile, "Su Yu from the great Xia mansion." Su Yu smiled faintly. "Su Yu from the great Ming mansion." "He, if you say so." The fatty did not mind and said cheerfully, "I heard from Bai Juanqing that you are very powerful. If I dare to touch him, he will let you beat me to death." "Su Yu, my grandfather is the mansion master. Are you going to beat me to death?" Su Yu's heart was tired. "Bai Juanqing. Do I know him? I am so bored that I want to beat the mansion master's grandson to death the moment I arrive." Zhu Tiandao seemed to only have 2 grandsons and 1 granddaughter. His eldest grandson was now Ling Yun. He did not see it. This should be his youngest grandson. It was probably the Zhu Hongliang that the storyteller had mentioned. There were quite a number of grandsons and granddaughters, but Su Yu had never heard of them. "Your Highness, you have misunderstood," Su Yu said calmly, "Bai Juanqing." "Your Highness, are you talking about my master's cousin?" "Yes, that's him." Zhu Hongliang gritted his teeth and said, "He's such a despicable person. He's sparring with me, but he actually ambushed me." "Did you need to ambush him?" Su Yu sensed for a moment. The other party was not very strong, but he was still recuperating. Didn't Bai Juanqing break through and soar into the sky? Su Yu could understand why he was stuck in cultivating his temperament. The Zhu family also had the art of literature. They needed to open 24 divine apertures. The younger generation would open 24 divine apertures in the cultivation stage. It would be difficult for them to open so many divine apertures in just a few years. Bai Junsheng, who was in the soaring heavens realm, was still at the third level of the soaring heavens realm. It was normal for him to hit you. Su Yu was slightly surprised. He heard that his master's father was only Ling Yun. The head of the Bai family was Bai Feng's uncle. This Bai Junsheng should be the son of his uncle. The son of the head of the family actually dared to hit Zhu Hongliang. What was going on? Had the head of the Bai family arrived in the mountains and seas? Since Su Yu didn't ask in detail, he probably hadn't arrived yet. Su Yu looked at the group of people in front of him, smiled, and said, "Your Highness, the Zhu family doesn't care if Bai Junsheng hits you?" Zhu Hongliang asked curiously, "Why should they care?" Su Yu thought to himself, "I have to look into the rules of the Daming Manor. Your Highness has been bullied by outsiders, and the Zhu family doesn't want to stand up." Zhu Hongliang asked curiously, "Why would they stand up for him? Isn't it normal for students to spar?" "I see." Su Yu nodded. "I understand. The Zhu family won't interfere. This is a good thing. If you find trouble later, I'll beat you up. It probably won't be a problem. Anyway, I'm just cultivating my character. Bai Junsheng is fine beating you up in the air, but if I cultivate my character, then it probably won't be a problem at all, right?" Just as he was thinking about it, the girl who had not spoken before spoke up. "You're Su Yu. The Su Yu that Grandpa wants to marry me to you. He's not bad looking, but he's too skinny." The girl sized Su Yu up for a while and said unhappily, "You're so skinny. Do you not eat every day? Or do you often have affairs outside? I don't like people like you." She wasn't happy. Being thin and weak meant that he was up to no good. In Daming Manor, she had seen too many of them. She wasn't interested in such Lotharios. There were too many such Lotharios in Daming Manor. Even if Su Yu's talent was amazing, she wasn't interested. Su Yu laughed. "Manor head, it's just a joke. I'm only focused on cultivation and don't have the heart to care about anything else." When he said this, the girl looked at him strangely. "Are you a hypocrite? Are you trying to get my attention? Is that why you are saying this? Do you have a lover? I have read in the records of the Zhu clan manor that your teacher, Lu Wenyan, was a Lothario when he was young. Are you trying to pretend to be a good person?" His heart was tired. "You are too direct. Also, is the Zhu clan too free to record Lu Laosher's Lothario? Speaking of which, I have to borrow it to take a look at it later on." Even before entering the residence, he already met two weirdos. Su Yu was also depressed. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1101 1101 Chapter 264 The Magical Daming Mansion Show. Subscribe. 3. He forced a smile and said, "If the princess says so, then so be it." At this moment, in the crowd, a child asked curiously, "Su Yu the great demon king, can you beat my ninth brother?" "Beat my ninth brother, beat my eighth sister." Su Yu smiled and looked at Zhu Hongliang and the woman. "The two of you stopped me because you want to spar?" "No." Zhu Hongliang said straightforwardly, "I'm not interested in sparring. If we really want to spar, we can compare other things. For example, who eats more and who drinks more. Sparring is boring." Zhu Hongliang said quickly, "I'm just curious. Why does my grandfather value you so much? Even if you can kill Ling Yun, it's because of your innate blood essence. Some of the geniuses in the Daming Mansion can also kill enemies of a higher level with the help of some external objects." It was indeed a little strange. He admitted that Su Yu was a genius and a monster. There was nothing that he couldn't admit. However, it was a little too much for Zhu Tiandao to take it so seriously. He even held a high-level meeting for Su Yu. This was a little too much. He even wanted to give his eighth sister to Su Yu. His eighth sister was his grandfather's only granddaughter. He wasn't that surprised to have a granddaughter. Foreign object. Su Yu smiled and said, "You mean this?" As he said that, he reached out and grabbed. With a bang, he crushed a small bug in the air in front of him. In the next moment, his figure flashed and with a bang, he smashed his fist on Zhu Hongliang's head. With a bang, Zhu Hongliang exploded. The young men and women around were stunned. He killed someone. Those guards were also shocked. In the next moment, the exploding Zhu Hongliang opened his mouth and said in surprise, "How did you see it?" "It's just a small trick." Su Yu said calmly, "There's still a difference between a human and a puppet. However, don't tell me that this puppet is very realistic. Fake." However, they were slightly shocked in their hearts. They hadn't seen it before, but when they caught the little bug, they realized that something was amiss. Amazing. A moment later, another fatty walked out from the palace gate. It was Zhu Hongliang. The fatty exclaimed, "I feel that this puppet of mine is very real." With a bang, Zhu Hongliang, who had just come out, exploded once again. Su Yu said indifferently, "Your Highness, it's better not to play around. It's a waste of money. These puppets are worth a lot. Even if they have the strength of a level 1 or level 2 ascendant, to me, it's just a slap. Your Highness, why bother?" Zhu Hongliang appeared once again. This time, he was a real person. Looking at Su Yu, he was speechless. "You want to kill me just like that? Aren't you afraid that you'll really kill me? So ruthless. How did you know that it was definitely a puppet? If this was a real person, if you killed me, would you still be able to survive?" At the side, the girl also said in surprise, "You're so strong. Even without your innate blood essence, you can still be so strong." Although it was a puppet, it really had the strength to soar into the sky. In the end, it was easily killed by Su Yu. Su Yu smiled and said, "It's all right. I usually don't kill people. If you really wanted to kill people, you guys wouldn't be enough." Even if this eighth princess seemed to have reached the 4th or 5th stage of the leap into the air, it would still not be enough. "Are you really 18 years old?" The girl continued to ask and very quickly said, "My name is Zhu Qinyan. I'm ranked 8th, older than you by 2 years. You can also call me 8th sister." "8th princess, you're too polite." Su Yu ignored her. "Forget about 8th sister. There was no need to get too close to them. Who knew if it was old Zhu's honey trap? Women were all obstacles to cultivation. There was no need to pay attention to them." Although this Zhu Qinyan was a little prettier than he had imagined, Su Yu was not interested. "You are boring." Zhu Qinyan glanced at him and said in disappointment, "Other than being a little stronger, there's nothing special. I'm warning you. If my grandfather talks about this again, you have to refuse." Su Yu nodded and said seriously, "Don't worry, even if I go back to the Great Xia mansion to marry someone with a nose, I have no interest in you." Although she didn't understand, at this moment, Zhu Qinyan felt a thick malice. Zhu Hongliang was speechless. "What guts? You're going to be unlucky. My 8th sister has a tendency to be violent. Of course, she might not be able to beat Su Yu." "Humph." Zhu Qinyan ignored him and turned around to leave. It was meaningless and did not fit her image in her mind. In her opinion, Su Yu, whose name shook the Great Xia Mansion and Daming Mansion, should be the kind of chivalrous man who carried a sword and walked the world. He had the image of a chivalrous man who carried a sword and walked the world. At this moment, Su Yu was wearing a green robe. His temperament was reserved and he looked very ordinary. He was no different from an ordinary scholar. Daming Mansion did not have too many people like him. She had taken a few more glances at the puppet that destroyed Zhu Hongliang previously. But very quickly, that feeling disappeared in a flash. There was nothing special about it. It was just that his strength was a little stronger. But it was not as if the Daming Manor did not have any experts. Su Yu did not care. It was good that he left. It was troublesome. Ignoring Zhu Hongliang, Su Yu looked at the guard who was leading the way and smiled. Can you take me to see Manor Head Zhu now? Please, my lord. The guard did not dare to say anything more and hurriedly led Su Yu to the main hall. Behind them, the Zhu family descendants began to discuss amongst themselves. Ninth brother, he didn't give you face. Beat him up. He doesn't look that fierce. Eighth sister was so angry that she ran away. Everyone spoke one after another. Zhu Hongliang smiled and ignored them. He looked at Su Yu curiously and suddenly shouted, Su Yu, I heard that you have a good relationship with Xia Huyo from the great Xia Manor. What do you think of me competing with him? Is your highness talking about strength or something? In all aspects. Su Yu did not turn his head and said, I'm not too familiar with your highness, but judging from today, your highness will probably not live for more than 3 minutes if he meets Xia Huyo. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1102 1102 Chapter 264, The Magical Daming Mansion 4. It was 2F** King heart-wrenching. Is he very powerful? Average. Then. His Highness is even more average. F** CK. Zhu Hongliang cursed. How much of a person was he looking down on? Then what about bearing? His Highness's bearing is quite good. What about comparing it to Xia Huyo? Is His Highness willing to lend me 1 million merit points? If he's willing, then he's better than him. Previously, I asked him to lend me 1 million merit points, and he agreed very quickly. Zhu Hongliang was dejected. Forget it, I won't ask any more. Even if you sell me, I won't have 1 million merit points. Is Xia Huyo so generous? After thinking for a while, Zhu Hongliang suddenly shouted, then, are you willing to stay in my Daming Manor for a long time? I heard that once you have sufficient strength, you will return to the great Xia Manor. If you ask me to lend you money, if you don't return, then wouldn't my Daming Manor suffer a loss? If you treat me like a gentleman, I will definitely repay you. Su Yu replied in a clear voice. Zhu Hongliang seemed to be deep in thought. Suddenly, he smiled and said, you said that Xia Huyu is stronger than me. I am not convinced. At least, there is one thing that he is not as strong as me. He is not as fat as me. Alright, you win. Su Yu's footsteps paused. He did not turn his head. He laughed in his heart. This was getting interesting. Regardless of whether it was the descendants of the Xia or the Zhu family, to be honest, they all had the bearing to do so. At the very least, they were much stronger than the descendants of the average families. Su Yu did not continue his conversation with Zhu Hongliang. In the next moment, he stepped into the main hall. When he saw the crowd around him looking at him as if they were curious, he did not mind. He looked straight ahead and bowed as he said, Greetings, Manor Head. I am Su Yu. Thank you for saving my life, Manor Head. No need to thank me. Zhu Tiandao smiled and said, before you came here, I had a discussion with everyone. Tell me what you think. Do you want to study at the Institute or do you want to study alone? I am willing to join the Daming Civilization Institute. Zhu Tiandao nodded slightly and said, that is only natural. You want to rebuild the Primordial Spirit Research Institute. As for what you need, just make a list and hand it over to Old Ho. The Daming Mansion will support you in rebuilding the Primordial Spirit Research Institute. Thank you, Manor Head, for your help. Su Yu thanked him. Zhu Tiandao chuckled and said, feel free to mention whatever you need. Also, your junior researcher title has been approved. From now on, you are a true civilized master. Su Yu thanked him once again. Zhu Tiandao saw the situation and said, "You are still young. Daming Manor is not in a hurry. At the moment, you should focus on your studies and research as a supplement. The battle of the many will not affect Daming Manor. As long as you are in Daming Manor, the Zhu family will protect you for a day. But once you are out of Daming Manor, pray for your own good." Zhu Tiandao said seriously, "At this moment, there are experts from the single divine language faction here. Everyone, I hope that the scene in the Great Xia Manor will not appear in the Daming Manor." "Oh. Alright. Alright. Next time, I won't beat up Old Hu. Old Hu still owes me 30,000 merit points. Why don't Su Yu help him pay it back? Otherwise, he will say that we are bullying the Duo Divine Language faction." Su Yu was stunned. What did that mean? Zhu Tiandao coughed dryly. Hu Xiansheng, the dean of the Many Divine Literature Department of the Daming Civilization University. He's at the 7th level of the Mountain and Sea Realm. He didn't come today, so he went into seclusion. He owes a little money, so don't worry about it. Little money? Su Yu didn't say anything. I feel like I'm going to be unlucky. I just arrived, and in the main hall, someone actually asked me to pay back this Dean Hu. What does that mean? The old man who spoke just now looked at Su Yu, with a smile on his face. He said, "Since you've entered the academy, then according to the rules, you'll be divided into the Polytheistic Literature Academy. The Great Xia Manor doesn't have the Polytheistic Literature Academy, but we still have it. Your department doesn't do anything productive, neither can you fight, nor can you manufacture. Your research is also mediocre, and you owe us some small money. It's about 200,000 merit points or so. Student Su Yu, if you have the heart to cheer up the Department of Multiple Divine Languages, then you'd better help Old Hu pay back the money. He didn't come today because he's not in closed-door cultivation. He's afraid that we'll demand payment, so he won't go out no matter what. If this continues, it won't be a problem, right?" Su Yu was speechless. Principal Hu Xiansheng didn't come here because he was in closed-door cultivation. It was because there were too many creditors. F***CK. 200,000 merit points. I just helped pay back 300,000 merit points in the Great Xia Manor. You guys are here again. Do you think I'm a money-making boy? At this moment, the hall was a little noisy. In the next moment, a strong man walked towards Su Yu. He said in a loud voice, "Owing money is a small matter. Old Hu previously mortgaged the Polytheistic College to me and built a useless research institute. There are still 3 months before it expires. I have to go and take over the territory. Your Polytheistic College might not be able to survive. Su Yu, why don't you become a free student?" Su Yu looked at Zhu Tiandao with a dull expression. Is this even possible? Zhu Tiandao coughed lightly and said, That's their own matter. The Zhu family usually won't participate in it. Dean who mortgaged the Polytheistic Literature Academy. I can't say anything about that either. However, his research institute is built quite well. Why don't you stop asking for funds? The Zhu family will support your funds, but you still have to pay Old He. Your dean's research institute will belong to you. Use it as the Primordial Spirit Research Institute. Don't say anything, it's really built quite well. Old He, also known as this brawny man. The Zhu family won't give Su Yu any more money. How about we help you pay off your debt? The research institute built by your dean will be yours. Su Yu continued to be stunned. Where am I? What am I doing? I'm in the main hall of Daming Manor. Here, the manor head told him that your dean had mortgaged the institute. It's gone. Now, if you want the institute, then you have to pay off the money. Principal. Hu Xiansheng. Su Yu said somewhat numbly, if I take the research institute, will Principal Hu agree to it? The crowd didn't think much of it, but the brawny man also didn't think much of it. He owes me. I'll give you the promissory note and the mortgage contract. If he doesn't give you the research institute, you'll directly take over the polytheistic college and become the principal yourself. Wouldn't that be even better? I can become the principal. He continued to be in a daze. What the hell was this? Sure. Zhu Tiandao chuckled and said, that, you'd better not take on this mess. Cough cough, let me remind you. Once you become the dean, you'll have to support the people in that college. This polytheistic college will consume too much energy. You know very well that you won't be able to make ends meet. It couldn't be helped. The polytheistic college would consume too much energy. Suyu himself understood that. It wasn't for no reason that he was poor and destitute. It wasn't easy for old Hu either. He wanted to make a comeback and build a high-end research institute, but in the end, he suffered a terrible loss. He even lost all his savings and was now running around hiding from debts. Below the stage, beside Suyu, there was an old man who looked like a celestial being. He chuckled and said, Student Su, if you go to Daming Civilization University one day, remember to dress shabbily. This old Hu has been lacking money and is crazy. He's been borrowing money everywhere. Seeing that you're dressed well, he might even stick to you. Be careful. When he said this, the others all agreed. Someone said, he has even lost all his capital. That *T Research Institute has spent a huge amount of money to develop a defective product. What use is it? He even used a spatial teleportation array. This guy is really crazy. He must have spent 1,000,000 merit points. This is great. He has suffered a huge loss. Now that the polytheistic college is crying for food, a group of people will probably switch to other departments. They are starving to death. Suyu was shocked. Damn. What was he researching? A teleportation array. Wasn't this a teleportation array? Suyu knew about this theory and had heard of it before, but he couldn't even come up with an invincible one. Yet, the polytheistic college of Daming Manor was actually researching this. Wasn't that crazy? No wonder they were in so much debt. This thing was simply eating without vomiting. Suyu had a splitting headache. It was the same for the Great Xia Manor. Hong Tan and the others had been trying to come up with some innate blood essence previously, but they only came out and didn't enter. They nearly vomited blood due to the loss, and now Daming Manor was also doing the same. The principal had lost so much that he had even mortgaged the academy. The Daming Manor actually allowed such a transaction. They were all crazy, right? If you let Zhou Mingren mortgage the Divine Literature Academy to try it out, the Xia family would probably chop him to death with a single slash. I'll think about it again. I want to be quiet. At this moment, Suyu could only say this. Whether or not I'll be able to enter the many Divine Literature Academy, I'm currently in an uncertain state. Looking at it again, I feel that this might be a huge pit. Zhu Tiandao coughed lightly and said, It's fine. We'll decide after considering it. There are still a few days before the semester starts, so there's no rush. Also, after the semester starts, the Daming Manor will also allocate 30,000 merit points to the Duo Divine Literature Academy this year. Just as he finished speaking, an elder below the stage opened his mouth and said, Manor Head, that will be allocated to our beast taming department. Old Hu has already paid in advance and mortgaged it to me. Just directly allocate it to me. Alright then, Zhu Tiandao was helpless as well. He coughed dryly and said, You and Old Ho should hand it over. Unable to help, he looked at Suyu. Our Daming Manor really didn't suppress the many divine languages department. It was pretty good, but, that principal of yours went crazy and didn't live up to his expectations. He even mortgaged the funds for the next semester. You'd better consider whether you want to join or not. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1103. 1103 Chapter 265, Super Rich One. Ever since he first entered Daming Manor, it had somewhat overturned Su Yu's worldview. On the whole, it seemed like it wasn't too bad. There was a high probability that the multi-god literature department wouldn't be suppressed, right? However, these guys had all crazily lent money to Dean Hu, causing him to lose over 1 million merit points and sell everything. Su Yu seriously suspected that these guys had deliberately encouraged Dean Hu to do it. The academy had been mortgaged, and the funds for the next semester had been advanced. It was still unclear for the next semester, and that principal who had been reduced to not daring to participate in the meeting to hide from his debts. As for Su Yu, he had also gotten to know quite a number of the upper echelons of the Great Ming Academy through Zhu Tiandao's introduction and the casual conversations of others. Director Ho of the Department of Cultivation, he of the Great Ming War Academy, and Vice Principal Wang of the Great Ming Civilization Academy. The head of the main house, Niu Baidao, didn't come. He was rumored to have gone on a rampage. After a short exchange, Zhu Tiandao smiled and said, "I know you're not used to chatting with old fellows. Today, the main purpose is to acknowledge the door. Hong Liang, come in and send Su Yu to the Heavenly Dao Garden to rest. You've been on the run for the past few days. Have a good rest. As for the other matters, just let Hong Liang help you handle them." When Zhu Hongliang entered, Su Yu thanked him once again. Zhu Tiandao had sent his grandson to receive him. It could be considered that he had overestimated Su Yu. As for Su Yu, he indeed needed to digest all sorts of information at this moment. It was not a good thing for him to be new here and not know anything about the Daming Manor. After Su Yu left, Zhu Tiandao said unhappily, "Why are you scaring people for no reason? Look at how scared he was. Old Hu is not as bad as you say. Actually, if this spatial teleportation formation really produces results, the things that you have researched for hundreds of years won't be able to compare to this." An old man below the stage snappily said, "Researching my A*S. Only when one was invincible would one be able to touch upon time and space. The Seeker realm was also being researched and developed. Even the Darming King had personally participated in it. Up until now, he had only created a few simple teleportation talismans to stabilize the large-scale spatial teleportation formation. It's not that simple. That's right, we're doing this for Su Yu's good. That fellow Old Hu, seeing how talented Su Yu is, might even trick him into participating in it. The Darming Manor didn't recruit Su Yu for the sake of him researching the spatial teleportation formation." Everyone spoke one after another as they mocked Zhu Tiandao. Who was scaring Su Yu? It was to remind that fellow not to foolishly fall into Old Hu's trap. Not only did the spatial teleportation array cost a lot of money, the key was that it was too difficult to obtain results. Zhu Tiandao sighed, "Actually, I know it's difficult, but there's still some hope. Our Daming Manor says that 100 flowers bloom, but everyone knows in their hearts that it's just some small research and development that isn't on the surface. Research results that can truly change the general trend of things are extremely rare." The Zhu family had actually sponsored a lot of this spatial teleportation formation. After spending 1 million merit points, the Zhu family had spent at least half of the funds. In the end, it was all for naught. There was no hope. The Daming Manor's civilization masters were indeed powerful, but they lacked the research and development results of the Ding Ding. Although those small things were useful to ordinary people, they weren't of much help to the higher-ups or the overall situation. When these words were said, someone said unhappily, "What are you saying, Manor Head? Why isn't there any major research and development? Let's not talk about other things, just that heaven-swallowing ant." Zhu Tiandao's face turned black. "You mean that thing that almost swallowed tens of thousands of soldiers of the Heavenly Dao Army? F***CKU. There was no distinction between friend and foe. It could not be controlled. Once it was released, there would be no way to control it. The old man who spoke was a little embarrassed, but he quickly explained, that thing was not useful during the Great War, but it was useful for sneak attacks. Letting a guy with an ant nest charge into the enemy's main army and release the heaven-swallowing ant was very useful. Zhu Tiandao said with a headache, "You guys find a way to retrieve or control it first. Otherwise, this thing will be a big trouble. The last time we released this thing, it has already caused the dissatisfaction of many unrivaled experts. This thing can swallow everything. It has done too much in the heavenly battlefield, and it has swallowed all the small tribes. It is not easy for us to explain ourselves. Then we will continue to think of a way." Actually, Zhu Tiandao also felt that this thing was not bad. It was just that if it could not be controlled, it would be very troublesome. Let's not talk about the idle chatter of these important figures. At this moment, Suyu followed Zhu Hongliang towards the back garden of the city lord's manor. Suyu opened his mouth and said, "The heavenly Dao garden is in the city lord's manor?" "Yes." Zhu Hongliang chuckled and said, "That's a good place. Under normal circumstances, only when a few days and months come to visit will grandfather arrange for the guests to come to the heavenly Dao garden." "I'm flattered," Suyu replied as he observed the surroundings. Compared to the Great Xia Manor, the Great Ming Manor was much less austere. Not only were there people, even the buildings felt much gentler. In the Great Xia Manor, it was actually very rare to see such exquisitely carved buildings. They were slightly rough. And in the Great Ming Manor, along the way, there were pavilions, small bridges, flowing water, and beautiful flowers. There was more elegance in the south and less boorishness in the north. Zhu Hongliang saw that he was observing the environment and said with a smile, "Suyu, you want to join Daming Civilization Academy?" "Probably. That Dean Hu of yours has a bad reputation." "How is it bad?" "He has too much debt and is a deadbeat." Suyu smiled and said, "That's his problem. A bad reputation has nothing to do with me. But the outside world says that you are a genius from the Multidivine Literature Department. If you come, he will definitely find you." Suyu said calmly, "If it's not one department, then it's one group. There are so many people from the Divine Literature Department. Can they all be one group?" Zhu Hongliang nodded and did not mention this again. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1104. 1104 Chapter 265 The Super Rich 2. Soon, they arrived at the Heavenly Dao Garden. Suyu had originally thought that it was a small villa or a house or something, but when he arrived at the Heavenly Dao Garden, he realized that he had underestimated Daming Manor. It was truly a huge garden. Outside the garden, there were guards. Inside the garden, there were many palace maids and guards. At this moment, they were shuttling back and forth, bustling about. In the garden, there were many pavilions, small bridges, flowing water, and a huge man-made lake. Zhu Hongliang casually introduced, "This Heavenly Dao Garden has 36 buildings and hundreds of rooms. You can stay anywhere you want. Recently, there's no one in the Heavenly Dao Garden, so you're the only one staying here. If there's anything you need, just let me know." With that, he waved his hand, and an old man with a smile walked over. "This is Manager Xia of the Heavenly Dao Garden. If you need anything, just look for him. Greetings, Your Highness, and Mr. Su." The manager kept smiling. "If Mr. Su needs anything, just summon me at any time." Suyu nodded and didn't say anything else. After walking for a while, Suyu said, "Just find me a room that can accommodate people. Also, I'll have to trouble Manager Xia to prepare some blood food for me. These little demons haven't eaten for a long time." He kicked the Swan Ni at the side. Manager Xia's expression changed slightly. "Alright, I'll prepare it right away." Swan Ni. He almost ignored it. One of the top 100 races, the 9th level of the Soaring Heaven realm. This wasn't weak at all. It was also equivalent to a human genius of the 9th level of the Soaring Heaven realm. If he encountered some weaklings, he could even kill Ling Yun by crossing ranks. I'll have to trouble your highness. If your highness is busy, you don't have to worry about me. Zhu Hongliang was speechless. I'm not busy. Forget it, this fellow doesn't seem to like me. I'll leave now. I'm not too familiar with him either. Zhu Hongliang didn't bother him too much and left quickly. A few minutes later, Suyu entered a small building. It was a 3-story building. It was a classical building, but the interior decoration was advanced and had everything. After sending Chief Hu away, Suyu sat down on the sofa and fell into deep thought. Daming Manor was unfamiliar. An unfamiliar environment, an unfamiliar person. Everything was incomparably unfamiliar. When he went to the Great Xia Manor that day, he was actually also unfamiliar. However, at least he knew that Bai Feng was still waiting for him there. However, here, he did not know what the road ahead was. Zhu Tiandao gave him a pretty good feeling. It was pretty good, and he was also quite supportive. However, this was built on the foundation of some things. Strength. Strength was the root. Without strength, even if Zhu Tiandao valued him and he didn't produce any research results, his strength wouldn't be enough. Sooner or later, the Zhu family would give up on supporting him. Daming Manor's multi-god literature department is a pit. Should I enter this pit? If I don't enter the pit, then I'll fight alone. If I enter the pit, I might be able to pull a 7th level of the mountain and sea realm to help me charge into the formation. This so-called charging into the formation wasn't fighting, but fighting for the right to speak. Although the Daming Manor had salted fish, there would definitely be fights over benefits. It was impossible for everyone to be a saint and not care about benefits. The reason why they were salted fish was because they hadn't touched the other party's benefits. Taking a deep breath, Suyu didn't care anymore. After thinking for a while, many merit cards appeared in his hands. Suyu's eyes flickered. Merit cards could be used to trade for merit points. Of course, they needed a password. Moreover, his merit card was registered in the Great Xia Manor. Would the Great Xia Manor seal his card? The probability was not that high. However, for the others' merit cards, firstly, they did not know the password. Secondly, they did not know if the Great Xia Manor had sealed their merit cards and frozen their merit points. There were quite a number of cards. Including those of the students, such as Xia Qing and the others, they were all students with high statuses. Suyu guessed that they probably had quite a number of merit points. Money was useful wherever they went. Even when they arrived at the Daming Mansion, Suyu still had to spend money. He could not always count on the Zhu family. The more he wanted, the more he owed. Sometimes, if he owed too much, it would be difficult to pay back. Password. Suyu stroked a large row of merit cards. Among them, there was Jin Yuhui, a Sun-Moon Realm merit card. How many merit points did he have? How to crack the password? His eyes flickered for a moment. Suyu shook a bell. The bell was silent. A moment later, Manager Xie's voice came from outside the door. Mr. Su, what do you need? Manager Xie, let's talk after you enter. Manager Xie quickly pushed the door open and entered. He bowed. Suyu smiled and said, Manager Xie, don't be too polite. I'm just a recuperating student. Manager Xie is a powerhouse in the Lingyin realm. There's no need for you to be like this. Mr. Su, you can't abandon your etiquette. Suyu smiled and did not say anything else. He pointed to the opposite side of the sofa and motioned for the other party to sit down. Manager Xie did not say anything else. He sat down quietly and looked at the row of merit cards on the coffee table. His gaze was a little strange. There were so many of them. Su Yu smiled and said, Daming Mansion. I'm new here and I don't understand the situation either. However, I know that Daming Mansion has a lot of tricks up their sleeves. Manager Xie, I have something to ask you. Does Daming Mansion have any methods to crack the enemy's merit cards? Each mansion encircles and annihilates the myriad clan cult. There are always some people who have an identity on the surface and all have merit cards. How do we crack them? Mr. Su, under normal circumstances, once the identity is found, the merit office can directly freeze the other party's card. What about private decryption? This, Manager Xie hesitated for a moment before he said, the military can decrypt it. Otherwise, there will be no spoils of war for killing the enemy. There are many so-called decryption methods. The simplest one is to find the merit office and ask them to provide the password. Su Yu was speechless. This was indeed simple. What if we don't look for the Meritorious Service Center? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1105. 1105 Chapter 265 Super Rich 3. The government doesn't support private deciphering, but there are some unscrupulous people in Daming Prefecture who are thieves. I do know a little about them, some of them can be deciphered. Could I trouble Chief Xie to find an expert in this field for me? I have quite a number of merit cards that need to be deciphered. Sure. Mr. Su, please wait a moment. I'll immediately arrange for someone to look for them. Thank you for your trouble. After exchanging pleasantries with Manager Xie for a while, Su Yu sent him off and smiled. Daming Manor, interesting. He also guessed that there might be a way to decipher it, and as expected. After waiting in the room for about half an hour, Manager Xie brought his men over. A man who looked refined was a little reserved at the moment. When he saw Su Yu, he was a little surprised, but he did not say anything. Su Yu wasn't interested in talking more. He pointed at the merit cards on the table and smiled. Can you crack them? That's easy. The gentle middle-aged man said immediately, these are all unencrypted merit cards, and they are all old-style merit cards. I'm afraid the holder is not young anymore. Now, 3 generations of merit cards have been issued. Manager Xie coughed lightly and said, cut the crap. You just have to crack the password. Yes. The middle-aged man did not dare to say anything else. This unorthodox fellow had entered the city lord's manor with his legs trembling. He did not dare to say anything else. Su Yu glanced at him. His strength was average, 10,000 stone realm. However, 10,000 stone realm was still considered a thief. Alright, everyone has their own aspirations, so he could not be bothered to say anything. The other party took out some equipment and quickly inserted a card into it. Very soon, the test began. After about 7 to 8 minutes, the middle-aged man wiped off his sweat and said, Sir, it's broken. Su Yu stuck his head out to take a look. The middle-aged man's eyes were also filled with astonishment. At this moment, this merit card had been broken, and there was also a merit point display on it, 38,000 points. Zhou Pingxing's card. Su Yu could still roughly remember it, but at this moment, he was also a little surprised. This guy was really greedy. The Spirit Accumulation Pearl and the Shanghai Realm Divine Talisman all required a large amount of merit points. Zhou Pingxing didn't really go out, and just like that, he still had 38,000 merit points left. How could he be so greedy? Continue. Su Yu didn't say much and let the middle-aged man continue. Tang Yunfei, 12,000 points. Xiu Yunhua, 6,000 points. Dao Seeking Academy Wang Ming, 8,000 points. Yu Hong, 23,000 points. Pavilion Elderly, 13,000 points. Deshang House Elder Zheng, 18,000 points. Yun Hu, the Old Fox, and Man Nyo didn't have any merit cards. The cards were all on the students, because the students were the masters. When the cards were opened, the merit cards were actually quite a lot. Xia Qing, 30,000 points. Bai Ce, 35,000 points. Niu Zhen, 25,000 points. In addition, there were also students from the Flying Wolf clan and the Iron-Winged Bird clan, 20,000 points and 18,000 points respectively. These fellows were all people who came to the human realm to study, so they brought quite a lot of things. Most of them were exchanged for merit points, and the tuition fees were also expensive. These merit points probably weren't all, and the rest should still be some treasures, but they didn't bring any with them when they left. And the experts of the Myriad clan religion didn't bring any merit cards. Instead, they brought a different kind of card, the merit card. This was the universal card of the Myriad clan religion. As for who would pay for these merit points, it would naturally be the gods and demons. These cards could also be used to withdraw merit points, but the prerequisite was to find the Myriad clan religion's trading location. The three experts had a total of 50,000 merit points. Of course, this couldn't be exchanged for merit points, unless one found someone from the religion of the 10,000 races to secretly exchange for some treasures. There was also Chen Chen, who had been killed by Su Yu. He didn't have many merit points, more than 500. This was almost negligible. Not only that, a large number of Soaring and Lingyun realm experts had also been killed. Almost all of the merit cards had been taken by Su Yu. The merit cards that Zhou Pingsheng and the others had taken had all ended up in Su Yu's hands. Of course, there weren't many of them. The last one to open was Jin Yuhui's merit card. There were many of them. The other party was a Sun-Moon realm expert, a manor head, and a veteran expert. He had been at the peak of the mountain and sea realm for many years, and there was not much he needed to spend money on. He had accumulated a total of 60,000 merit points, but that was not too much. The other party might still have many treasures in the Great Xia Manor. Lin Lin Powder had a total of 320,000 merit points and 70,000 contribution points. This was because Su Yu had not obtained the card of the 5th level Sun-Moon Fiend Celestial. The Fiend Celestial had been taken away by Zhu Tiandao. 320,000 merit points. At this moment, the middle-aged man's face turned pale. He knew who the other party was. Su Yu. He was really good. He could really kill. He had killed so many people. How terrifying. All the merit cards were actually in his hands. Su Yu did not care about him. At this moment, he was thinking about the Great Xia Manor. The Great Xia Manor actually did not freeze these cards. Su Yu smiled. He did not know if the Great Xia Mansion had temporarily forgotten about them and did not have the time to do so, or if they did not freeze them on purpose. It was because these cards had been taken away by him. Lord Xia should be able to guess it. Su Yu did not waste any more words. He transferred the merit points one by one to his own card. The merit points that he had used up previously had now reached 320,000. This was also the highest amount of merit points that Su Yu had obtained. Su Yu left a card at the end. He did not know whose card it belonged to, but he casually threw it to the middle-aged man and said indifferently, "Thank you very much. This is the reward." I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare to accept Lord's things. Take it. Yes. The middle-aged man did not dare to say anything else. He took the merit card and said in a low voice, "Lord, the merit points of the Myriad clan sect can actually be exchanged for merit points." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1106. 1106 Chapter 265 Super Rich 4. Su Yu's eyes flickered. The middle-aged man carefully said, "Well, there are some fellows in the religion of the 10,000 races. Actually, they are not really members of the religion of the 10,000 races. They are just hoodlums and swindlers. Some of these people are hiding in various big manors and will also do some contribution points and merit points transactions. Suyu nodded and did not say anything more. He waved his hand and said, "Got it." The middle-aged man did not dare to say anything more. Manager Xie quickly ordered his men to bring him away. After he left, Manager Xie smiled and said, "Mr. Su, the Myriad clan cult does have such a person. Contribution points and merit points can be exchanged. The other party will take a little. However, if you have your own connections, you can use them yourself. You may not need to spend money to exchange for them." Suyu nodded. There was no rush. He was not short of money for the time being. 320,000 points was enough. Not only that, Suyu quickly said, "Manager Xie, the merit point statistics of the various manors are the same, right?" "Yes." "Then I have killed many demonic beasts along the way, including some members of the Myriad clan cult, as well as Zhou Pingsheng and the other traders. Can I exchange for merit points?" "Yes." Manager Xie explained, "The various manors in the human realm are not unified, but some things are still the same. Currency. This is also a system that was created by the Quest Stage and the War God Hall to facilitate transactions. And the merit system is also the same." Manager Xie quickly said, "These are considered military merits. The basic rewards of military merits are actually distributed by the War God Hall and the Quest Stage. And these merit sources are collected by the manors together to give some free civilized masters and fighters a chance. Otherwise, if the other party kills the enemy in the Great Xia Mansion and can't exchange them in the Great Ming Mansion, it will discourage their enthusiasm." Suyu nodded. This was not a bad idea. He did not have a deep understanding of it before. In other words, the various manors would provide public funds for those at the Quest and War God Hall to lead. After that, they would distribute the funds to those who had made meritorious deeds. In this way, it would be the same no matter where the meritorious deeds were exchanged, it would not cause any pressure or dissatisfaction to the local manors. My mount has killed many people before and after. Does this count as mine? The one-eyed ones had killed a lot of people, including those at the Mountain Sea realm. They had killed the Cloud Tiger, the demonic scorpion sect, and the Iron-Winged Bird clan's 9th level Ling Yun. Shui Ren and the others had also killed the Black Panther clan's 9th level Ling Yun. Of course, it counts as Mr.'s spoils of war. Suyu did some calculations. The first, middle, and last 3 levels were 100,000, 200, and 300 points respectively. Killing Ling Yun would increase a lot, 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000 points. As for killing mountains and seas, that would be 10,000 to 30,000 merit points. The mountains and seas that One Eye and the others killed were all in the early stages. 2 mountains and seas would be 20,000 points. In the later stages of Ling Yun, Suyu, Shui Ren, and the others had killed a total of 4 people, 12,000 points. With the addition of the other Ling Yun, they had killed 5 or 6 people. In total, they had killed about 40,000 points. Not only that, they had also killed quite a number of soaring-level demons and the members of the 10,000 clans who had attacked them. In total, they had killed several thousand points. In total, they should be able to exchange for 50,000 merit points, right? In total, Suyu had earned a lot this time. He had earned over 400,000 merit points, including those merit points. Other than that, there were also some damaged civil soldiers and the like. There were also the corpses of a few great demons, as well as the corpses of the soaring demons. As for the other treasures, those fellows usually did not bring them along. In addition, there was the treasure vault of the Heavenly Divine Sect. After a simple count, Suyu estimated that it was probably worth hundreds of thousands of merit points. This time, Suyu had probably earned close to 1,000,000 merit points. Of course, this was brought to him by the death of 12 mountains and seas and 2 suns and moons. After killing so many people and getting less than 1,000,000 merit points, he might as well go and develop a cultivation technique. Even an outstanding cultivation technique could earn so much. No wonder the civilized masters of the Daming Prefecture were too lazy to go to the battlefield. No matter how much killing there was, even if they killed a few suns and moons, it might not be as much as their research and development of some small things. The accumulated income over time would be more. Killing people was the most unprofitable business. Su Yu did not waste any time. He handed the one-time storage talisman to Chief Xia and said, "Chief, can you help me get rid of these things? Including some damaged soldiers and so on." There were many things and they were very miscellaneous. They were not of much help to Su Yu. He might as well exchange them for merit points and see what he needed. Chief Xia hurriedly said, "It's a small matter. If it's not convenient for Mr. Su to appear, give me some of the videos of the demon race and the disciples of the 10,000 races. I'll help you solve the problem of receiving merit points. I'll have to trouble you, Chief." Su Yu was also happy and relaxed. This was also good. In addition, he didn't deal with the corpses of Yun Hu and the other great demons. Zhu Tiandao had taken them away before and gave them to him later. The only thing Zhu Tiandao took away was the corpse of the Sun-Moon God. Su Yu kept the corpses of the 3 mountain and sea great demons for himself. He might need them later. Just like that, Su Yu didn't go out again and stayed in the small building. When night came, Manager Xia brought him a merit card. It was a total of 50,000 merit points. He didn't know if he had purposely gathered them for himself, but Su Yu didn't ask any further. At this point, he had 370,000 merit points and 70,000 contribution points. There were 3 corpses of mountain and sea demons, as well as a few treasures from the treasury. He had brought dozens of papers of will, some information from the Great Xia Manor, and some puppets from Zhao Tianbing. They were all useful items. It could be said that Su Yu could be considered a super rich man at this moment. Ordinary sun and moon experts definitely did not have as much money as him, unless they were the rulers of a faction. A sun and moon like Jin Yuhui, who had just advanced to sun and moon, only had 60,000 merit points. In the past, Su Yu was still worrying about a few merit points, but in the blink of an eye, he had accumulated a frightening amount of wealth. However, Su Yu knew that he would probably have to spend a lot of money in the future. The research institute had to be set up. No matter what other people guessed, be it the ruins or the inheritance, he actually didn't have any. The cultivation techniques given in the atlas all required money and conversion. Some cultivation techniques still needed to be sorted out by Su Yu himself. For example, the 5 elements technique and the acupoint fusion technique were all sorted out by Su Yu himself and derived together with Zhao Li. There were also many other things. For example, the research of the blood essence, the splitting of the divine runes, and the forging of weapons. He had promised Zhao Li that he would join Ling Yun and help him forge Earth-grade literary soldiers. Daming Mansion, a new beginning. Su Yu took a deep breath. The crisis had yet to be resolved. The current crisis was not just the Great Xia Mansion's divine literature alone. It was the hidden invincibility. It was the attitude of the entire human realm towards the multi-divine literature, including what Wan Tiansheng had said about the myriad races. This was because the rise of the multi-divine literature might mean the birth of an invincible civilized master. The 10,000 races would not allow it. His 2 teachers were still in the vanguard camp. The Daming Mansion is where I accumulate my strength. He had temporarily left the faction conflict here, but Su Yu would not give up just like that. Some people were still worth worrying about. If he did not need to worry about others, he could go anywhere and do anything by himself. Su Yu could actually endure such loneliness after spending his entire life in the research institute. Teacher. If you aren't responsible and abandon me, I still have to be responsible for all of you. Su Yu chuckled. Whether it was Lu Wenyan or Bai Feng, meeting these people in his life was both trouble and luck. That unreliable by-phone Lauscher had long noticed many things, but he still passed everything down to him without hiding anything. The kindness of a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. He, Su Yu, ultimately could not let go of these things. He could not be heartless. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1107. 1107 Chapter 266 Purchase of Research Institute 1. Time passed day by day. Su Yu disappeared in front of everyone. Even the Daming mansion heard that Su Yu had entered the Tiande mansion, but since the first, Su Yu had not made a sound and was nowhere to be seen. The middle of January was the start of the school year for the various universities. Many people were wondering, would Su Yu go to the university in the middle of January? Would he continue to study? Would he continue to open his Primordial Spirit Research Institute? The rumored Su Yu was very arrogant and savage. In fact, many people in Daming Manor wanted to see Su Yu, but no one was able to see him. Heavenly Dao Garden. 10 days. Su Yu did not go out for 10 days. These 10 days were a time for him to settle down, to understand the Daming Manor and familiarize himself with it. He was reading, cultivating, and understanding everything about the Daming Manor. 10 days later, he opened the remaining apertures. 346. At this moment, Su Yu had opened a total of 346 yuan apertures and 114 divine apertures. All of this was thanks to the battle that he had fought all the way here, which made it easier for him to open and fuse apertures. 10,000 stone 9 grades, peak of recuperation. Su Yu's strength did not seem to have changed much from before. On the roof of the small building, Su Yu sat on a rattan chair, basking in the warm sun as he continued to read. Records of the Daming Mansion. This was a very interesting book. As he was reading, someone ran over with a rumble from afar. Zhu Hongliang had just arrived downstairs when he laughed and said, "Su Yu, school will start in 2 days. The 8 horses of Tiandu are preparing to hold a poetry meet before school starts. Are you going?" "No." Su Yu was not interested and said calmly, "Your Highness, you can go by yourself." Poetry meet was actually a different type of divine writing competition. It was not purely a romantic affair. The civilized masters of Daming Manor were very good at playing. Some people did not care about the characteristics of the divine writing. They had to form a poem, a sentence. Regardless of the characteristics, those who could form a sentence were good divine writing. Su Yu was not interested. These people's poetry meet was not a competition of strength. It was a competition of whose poems were more fluent and more eye-catching. They were also compared to other things, such as the Beast Tamer meet, the Puppet Master meet. Many meetings. Su Yu was not interested in participating in these things. He had his own goals. Don't. Everyone is still very curious about you. Why don't you go out with me for a walk? I have already agreed. Su Yu glanced at him, causing Zhu Hongliang to feel a little embarrassed. Only then did Su Yu say, "Your Highness, go and play by yourself." Then. Zhu Hongliang was helpless. "All right, you're really boring. No wonder my 8th sister said that you're very boring and old-fashioned. After all, we're still young people." Su Yu smiled and ignored him. "I'm not you, and you're also not me. A child is not a fish, so how would one know the happiness of a fish?" Zhu Hongliang left, and not long after, a figure flashed and disappeared. In the next moment, he appeared in front of Su Yu. Su Yu stood up and bowed. "Greetings, Mansion Master. Don't stand on ceremony." Zhu Tiandao sat down on the chair opposite him and said with a smile, "Hongliang, this kid is playful, but he has a kind heart. In fact, he's just like me." Su Yu was speechless. Zhu Tiandao had 3 sons, 2 daughters, and 3 sons. Each of them had given birth to a son. His eldest son had given birth to Zhu Hongwen, who was now a Lingyun realm powerhouse. He was not old and was in his 30s. His second son had given birth to Zhu Hongliang, and his third son had given birth to Zhu Qinyan. However, old Zhu seemed to like Zhu Hongliang more. Su Yu had met his eldest grandson, Zhu Hongwen, once. He was a very refined person. In the end, old Zhu did not like him very much. Perhaps it was because he had a different way of educating people, but he did not treat Zhu Hongliang kindly. If it was his eldest grandson, he might inherit the position of mansion master. It was understandable that Zhu Tiandao was a little more strict with Zhu Hongwen. Lingyun realm. He was in his 30s. He was actually considered outstanding. Zhu Tiandao did not mention Zhu Hongliang anymore. He smiled and said, "What do you think about the research institute? I see that you have not made any movements. You have been reading books these days. Sharpening a knife does not delay the work of cutting firewood." Su Yu smiled and said, "These are just small matters. Manor Head has a lot of things to attend to every day. I'll have to trouble Manor Head to personally ask about it. I'm sorry. This is not a small matter." Zhu Tiandao chuckled and said, "It's a big matter. There's also yourself. It's your first time in Daming Manor. Actually, I think it's better to make a few friends. Being alone is a little lonely. Qin Yan and the other children have organized a Heavenly Tao conference. You can actually go and play with them. Young man, don't be too tense. Relax. There's no need to be like the Great Xia Manor when we arrive at the Great Ming Manor." Su Yu nodded and said, "I'll go there when I have time." Zhu Tiandao was speechless. This kid was really serious at such a young age. After arriving at the Great Ming Manor for so many days, all he did was cultivate in seclusion and read books. Didn't he find it boring? Alright, perhaps such a person would be able to go further. As for the Great Xia Manor, it had to be said that they were much more disciplined than the Great Ming Manor. Great Xia and Great Qin were both powerful large manors, and the people were all extremely martial. Over there, only the strong were respected. The Great Ming Manor was the same, but the other people in the Great Ming Manor also had a chance to stand out, so they didn't necessarily have to be powerful. If you have time, you can go and play. Also, have you seen the list from last time? If you're planning to establish a research institute, you can meet these people. To be honest, their strength is average, and they're too old. But when I say that they're knowledgeable, it's true. Su Yu nodded and smiled. They will. You brat, why do you feel that the Daming Mansion is becoming more and more boring? Zhu Tiandao saw this and did not say anything else. He stood up and said, "Then I won't bother you anymore. If you have any problems, feel free to look for Hong Liang." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1108. 1108 Chapter 266 Purchasing Research Institute 2. Thank you, Manor Head. Zhu Tiandao smiled and instantly disappeared from where he stood. Su Yu did not say much and continued to read. He had to pick the people he wanted to pick. However, they were all strangers. Some things and some matters could not be brought out on a platter. Right now, he was blind and did not know anything. He was not in a hurry to pick people. Besides, a group of old men and women might not be willing to come to his side. The research institute is important, but my strength is even more important. Can I gather all 360 apertures? Can I form a huge cycle? By Tianhao. Su Yu flipped through the records of the Daming Mansion in front of him. There was a record of Bai Tianhao in it. The founder of the Bai family. He had once killed a 7th-level mountain and sea realm expert with the strength of a 9th-level Lingyun. It was terrifying. Bai Tianhao was also one of the experts who had followed the Daming King to open the Daming Mansion. However, after that battle, Bai Tianhao had also fallen. However, the Bai family had passed down the legacy. Currently, the head of the Bai family was Bai Feng's eldest uncle. He was not at the mountain and sea realm, but was only at the 9th level of the Lingyun realm. However, Bai Feng's grandfather was still alive. This was somewhat out of Su Yu's expectations. Bai Feng's grandfather was a mountain and sea realm expert. However, the Bai family's old master had not come out of seclusion for many years. He had been in seclusion all this while. It was unknown whether he was breaking through or doing something. Bai Feng's father was still in the military, and Su Yu had never seen him before. As Bai Feng's student, the Bai family should know about him. However, until today, no one from the Bai family had come to contact him. Su Yu did not rashly visit either. He was not too clear about the Bai family's situation. Who knew if his teacher had been abandoned by the Bai family? Primordial Spirit Aperture, Bai Tianhao. Just as he was thinking, the void rippled, and in the next moment, the shadow and Shui Ren began to move. Cough, cough, one of us. A moment later, an old man appeared in the void. He had the air of an immortal, and his appearance was extremely good. He had long silver-white hair, a white beard, and wore a long white robe. He looked exceptionally immortal. Su Yu's eyes flickered for a moment before he stood up and said, "Greetings, Dean Hu. You know me? I guessed. You have good eyesight. Hu Xianqing. The Dean of the Daming Manor's Many Divine Literature Academy." Hu Xianqing said with a smile, as expected of a young elite whose name shook the entire human realm. This disposition, this bearing, is extraordinary. Dean, you flatter me. Su Yu smiled and said a few perfunctory words. Hu Xianqing. Why did he come to look for me? To borrow money? Student Su, you've been here for a few days. I've been busy these days, so I didn't have the time to welcome you. Headmaster, you must be joking. It's my turn to visit the headmaster. Hu Xianqing stroked his beard and said with a smile, "It's all right. Isn't school starting in a few days? I see that student Su hasn't signed up yet. Since you've just arrived, you should go and register yourself." Yeah, I got it. I know how to handle it. It's all right, I've already done it for you. It's a small matter. Hu Xianqing chuckled and teased, "Aren't you going to invite me to sit down and have a chat?" Dean, please sit down. Su Yu was also helpless. What do you want to talk about? I don't have money, don't ask me for money. Hu Xianqing ignored him and sat down. He said with a chuckle, "It's like this. I heard that student Su is going to build another Primordial Spirit Research Institute. When I heard that, it was a good thing. Well, I already have a huge research institute on my side. Building a new research institute is too time-consuming and requires a large amount of funds. I've thought about it. Don't waste this money. Student Su, why don't you just invest in my research institute? Here it comes." Su Yu felt helpless in his heart. He smiled and said, "Dean, forget it. I'm just making a small fuss. I've heard people say that the research institute of the Dean is too high-end. Not high-end, not high-end, just average." Hu Xianqing said excitedly, "My research institute has invested more than 2 million merit points. If student Su is willing to invest, I'll give you 30% of the shares for 400,000 merit points. How about that? Once the results are out, student Su, think about it. That's the teleportation formation." This old man was extremely excited at this moment. Teleportation formation. How long will it take you to reach the capital city of Great Xia? 3 days. That's the minimum. Lingyun needs 2 days, the mountains and seas need 1 day, the sun and moon need half a day. Even if you're invincible, it'll still take 2 to 3 hours. It's too time-consuming. But, think about it, once you have a teleportation formation, you'll need 3 seconds to reach the capital city of Great Xia. Hu Xianxing exclaimed, 3 seconds. Also, we humans have 6 entrances to the heavenly battlefield. Even the nearest one, the Daming Prefecture, will take 3 to 5 days to get there. It's scattered all over the world. But if we have the teleportation formation, even if we can't get there in one go, it will only take us a few dozen seconds. 1 minute will be enough. Is it expensive to charge you 100 merit points for one teleportation? Hu Xianxing smiled and said, it's not expensive, right? How many people did the various manners of the human realm have every day? Let's not talk about using all the teleportation arrays. Even if there were 10,000 people using it every day, that would be 1,000,000 merit points. After deducting the costs and operating expenses, one would earn at least 300,000 merit points in a day. 1 day. Hu Xianxing said excitedly, and this is still the human realm. 300,000 merit points a day, that would be 100 million worth of income in a year. Merit points. And if it's used in the heavenly battlefield, my God, that would be amazing. Hu Xianxing said in shock, I'm afraid the military is ecstatic. It's normal for them to give us tens of millions of authorization fees at once. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1109. 1109 Chapter 266 Purchasing Research Institute 3. Dreams were beautiful. But Su Yu did not take it seriously. Such a big deal, if you continue to play by yourself, I won't accompany you. Hu Xianxing seemed to have seen through his meaning and smiled. I know what you are thinking. Did you hear someone say something and think that I am dreaming? Hehe, it's really not a dream. I'm at the 7th layer of Shanghai City. Am I a fool? After saying that, he quickly took out 2 small doors. He threw one to Su Yu and smiled. Take it. Su Yu took the small door and was a little surprised. The next moment, Hu Xianxing took the other door and flew a little further, about 30 meters away. Look, don't blink. Hu Xianxing said excitedly, don't blink. As he said that, a small bottle appeared in his hand. He placed the bottle at the door, then opened the door and stuffed the bottle into it. Su Yu's hand trembled, and in the next moment, his eyes flashed. He quickly opened the door in his hand, and in the next moment, a bottle appeared. Su Yu suddenly raised his head and looked at Hu Xianxing over there. Holy shit! Teleportation. Fixed point teleportation. Hu Xianxing saw that he was shocked, he laughed and said, how is it? Shocking, right? It's not that I have no results, it's just that the results are not enough. There are 2 problems that I'm facing now. First, I can't teleport over a long distance, and second, I can't teleport living things. But research, that has to be done step by step. How can it be successful in one go? Over the years, I've burned almost 1,000,000 merit points, but it's not without results, is it? Hu Xianxing smiled and said, there are some guys who can't stand to see me well. They gossip about me all day long, saying that I'm spending money recklessly. Am I spending money recklessly? Hu Xianxing said excitedly, once I succeed, our Deming Mansion's many divine languages department will have to follow me and have a good time. Now, there aren't many people in the Deming Mansion's multi-divine literature department anymore. Including me and you, there are a total of 58 people. When we earn so much money, we can totally recruit 580 people, 5,800 people. 58 people. Su Yu was not surprised. Zhu Tiandao had said that there were only 50 to 60 people here. At least it was much stronger than the Great Xia Mansion. Moreover, those who were in the Divine Literature department could only cultivate because they were geniuses. Naturally, they would be restricted. At the peak of the Great Xia Mansion, there were only a few dozen experts in the Divine Literature department who could soar into the sky. Su Yu was not in a hurry to talk about the teleportation array. He quickly asked, Dean, how is our strength in the divine literature department? It's all right. Hu Xianqing coughed dryly and said, other than you and me, there are 56 people. For our Lingyun, 8 are soaring into the sky, and 44 are recuperating. Is that all right? Su Yu nodded. According to the number of people, this ratio was not bad. 1 mountain and sea realm, and 4 are Lingyun realm. But speaking of which, adding them up, it was not enough for Hong Tan to fight with one hand. The Daming Mansion was not targeted, probably because of their weak strength. The Daming Mansion allocated 30,000 merit points for a semester. If divided evenly, each person would have 500 merit points. Zhu Tiandao had said that he wouldn't suppress them, but Su Yu had believed him. This allocation wasn't low at all. Since there weren't many people, he couldn't ask for too much. As Su Yu spoke, he looked at the teleportation door in his hand. After thinking for a moment, he said, Principal, I've sensed that this teleportation door isn't bad. However, I'm afraid that there will be a lot of difficulties to face. The 2 points you mentioned are only a part of it. Also, this long-distance teleportation, how do we ensure the stability of space? How do we ensure that the power of space will cancel out the teleportation? Su Yu calmly said, this bottle is specially made, and its hardness is comparable to an Earth-grade weapon. Principal, don't think that I don't understand it. This kind of teleportation power can only teleport a distance of 30 meters, and this bottle is already shaking. The pressure of the space is too great. According to this situation, there is no way to teleport until the sun and moon, and the teleportation distance is not far. Hu Xianqing was a little embarrassed. Su Yu continued, and I took a look. The restrictions are too big. The headmaster should have implanted the positioning divine runes in the 2 portals. The headmaster is also willing to do so, but who has so many positioning divine runes? Hu Xianqing's expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly said, there's no need for divine runes. It's fine if you have a divine talisman, or if you have an expert implanted with willpower traction. Hu Xianqing explained, I implanted divine runes to make it easier to practice. This can be taken out at any time. Su Yu nodded. That's not a problem. We can make the divine talismans work together, or we can implant divine talismans. Hu Xianqing heaved a sigh of relief. It was good that he understood. Su Yu did not look like he did not know anything and could talk sense. However, it was not good if he understood it, and it was not easy to trick him. With this trick of his, he had fooled quite a number of people previously and borrowed quite a bit of money. Unfortunately, it had already happened a few years ago and he had demonstrated it many times. Now that everyone knew, there was no way to fool an acquaintance. Su Yu suddenly raised his head and looked at him. Principal, how much more money do you think we need to spend? How much time do you think we need to spend to perfect the teleportation array and truly achieve the goal of the teleportation person? Hu Xianqing hesitated for a moment, but he still said, 5 million merit points is the least, plus 100 years. He hurriedly said, but, everything is worth it. 100 years is a long time, but it has been more than 300 years since the opening of the human realm. If we had studied it a few years ago, we might have already produced results. It's because everyone isn't paying attention that the large human realm still doesn't have a teleportation array. Then do the 10,000 races have one? Yes. Hu Xianqing quickly said, they do have one, but of course, the cost is too high. They use the Void Stone as the foundation and are invincible. The one we developed is different from the other. Moreover, the teleportation array isn't suitable for us. Everyone's route is completely different. They can't set up a teleportation array in the heavenly battlefield, so they can only set it up in a stable interface between the gods and demons. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 11:10 1110 Chapter 266 Purchase of Research Institute 4. Su Yu was surprised. There were gods and demons. However, when he thought about it, it was normal. The development of the gods and demons was not hundreds of years, but tens of thousands of years. There were many human experts, but in terms of foundation, they were still far behind. Hu Xianqing quickly said, 400,000 merit points, Su Yu, 30% of the shares. Really, it's a good deal. No money. How can that be? The manor head has killed so many people. Didn't you take the merit card? The Great Xia Manor is frozen. F***ck. Hu Xianqing suddenly cursed, Xiao'er Xia is really not a human. Even this is frozen. Does that mean that you really have no money? That's not right. Didn't you send someone to exchange for a lot of merit points? There are already tens of thousands of points. A few tens of thousands of points can also be used to buy shares. Su Yu smiled and said, I have to build a research institute. Then, didn't the manor head promise to build it for you? I have to buy some things that I need. Hu Xianqing was anxious, don't. How about this? I won't buy shares. My research institute is very big. It has a total of 6 floors. I'll rent 3 floors for you. The annual rent will be 10,000 merit points. I'll bet 1 for 3 and pay 40,000 merit points. I'll use it for 3 years first. My side is full of high-end equipment, the sun and moon array, and its defense is top-notch. Su Yu said calmly, Principal, think about it. Next semester, when the semester starts, you'll have used up all of the Daming Manor's funds. What should the students do? In addition, 2 months later, the academy was taken over by someone. Principal, you can only disband the Multiple Divine Languages Department. The Daming Manor's Multiple Divine Languages Department was tormented to death by the principal himself. This is very helpless. Hu Xianqing was speechless. You know. I know. There was nothing else to say. Hu Xianqing was also depressed. At this moment, this expert of the 7th level of the mountain and sea realm was extremely depressed. Back then, I thought that I would definitely be able to complete it in a few decades. Speaking of which, it has something to do with the 5 generations of your Great Xia Mansion. Back then, he supported me and thought that I had great goals and good ideas. A genius of the multi-divine prose sect should be able to do such a world-shaking thing. Who knew? Sigh. He sighed. Hu Xianqing said helplessly, why don't you borrow tens of thousands of merit points? School is about to start. We can't let the students have nothing to eat. The outline of the divine literature depends on the text of will. To increase willpower, one has to absorb willpower. To temper the body, one needs blood essence and yuan qi. They had to spend money. There was nothing he could do. It was too tragic. Su Yu did not waste any time and said directly, I'll go and inspect the research institute. If it suits my wishes, I'm willing to spend money to buy it. Su Yu smiled and said, Manor Head Zhu is willing to support me, but I hope that some of the things are mine. I don't need outsiders to tell me what to do. I did some calculations for the dean. He owes 220,000 merit points to the external debt, and the academy has mortgaged 100,000 merit points. The student needs 30,000 merit points for this semester, a total of 350,000 merit points. If the Dean's Research Institute suits my thoughts, I'm willing to spend 350,000 merit points to buy it. Su Yu smiled and said, that's not a small amount. 350,000 merit points. I can buy a cutting-edge research institute anywhere. You are taking advantage of the situation. Hu Xianqing was so embarrassed that he flew into a rage. 350,000 merit points. Putting everything else aside, my research institute already has 3 large arrays. All of them are sun and moon arrays. There's also a set of sun and moon offensive formations that can defend against the invasion of willpower, and it's worth more than 150,000 merit points. Also, my research institute isn't any ordinary building. Even the floor is made of mysterious yellow iron. Even if Ling Yun were to fight, it wouldn't be breached in a short period of time. Some of my laboratories are top-notch, including the spatial cutting room. That's something that money can't buy. Even if I were to sell them apart, it wouldn't be a problem to sell them for hundreds of thousands of merit points. Suyu smiled and said, "Then headmaster, just sell them apart and sell them." You. Hu Xiansheng was speechless. "Didn't you say that you don't have money? I can borrow them." Suyu smiled and said, "If you can't, I'll sell some things. If not, I'll look for the Xia family and buy out all of my fusion aperture technique. Previously, I talked about giving me 1 merit point for every copy I spread. Now that I don't have money, it doesn't mean that I can't borrow money." Hu Xiansheng was depressed. He looked at him with hidden bitterness. After a long while, he said, "You're too evil. You bought out 350,000 merit points for me. After I pay off my debt, wouldn't I have gained nothing after so many years? It was too miserable." Suyu smiled and said, "Dean, it's better than being forced to not go out. I won't take over your research results. You can take away all the information about the spatial teleportation array. You can't do anything else. When you have the strength, you can go and study it again. When you have the capital, you can do it any time. I only want your research institute." These few days, he had also asked Chief Xie. It had to be said that Hu Xiansheng was really willing to spend money. His research institute, even if it was at the Sun-Moon tier, would not be able to enter in a short period of time. Just as Hu Xiansheng had said, it was all top-notch equipment, the kind of top-notch equipment. For example, the spatial cutting room that he had mentioned. When this thing was built, it could not be stopped without 70,000 to 80,000 merit points. To be able to cut space within it, this involved some invincible fields. This research institute was much more advanced than the Wentan Research Center. Suyu was puzzled as to why Bai Feng had chosen to go to the Great Xia Manor back then. Actually, the Great Ming Manor was really not bad. At the very least, the research facilities and equipment were much more advanced than the Great Xia Manor. Hu Xiansheng was a little resentful. "If I sell it to someone else, even 500,000 will do." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1111. 1111 Chapter 266 Purchasing Research Institute 5. Suyu smiled and said, "Not many people are willing to buy it. The powerhouses of Daming Prefecture almost all have their own research institute. If the weak don't have one, they wouldn't be able to afford it even if they wanted to. Speaking of which, this research institute of yours is a little useless. It's too high-end. Unless it's some top-secret research, there's no need to use such a high-end research institute." "That's right." Hu Xiansheng was helpless. "You were right. Those who had money didn't need it, and those who didn't couldn't afford it. In addition, it was too high-end. Who could he sell it to for hundreds of thousands of merit points? Who would want this thing? Then if you buy it, won't you suffer a loss?" Suyu smiled. "It's fine. I mainly research cultivation methods. A set of cultivation methods with strong universality will be able to recoup the cost of one set. I can even earn quite a bit. The fusion technique? More or less." Hu Xiansheng was extremely resentful. "The fusion technique is out. Do you still want to study the fusion technique?" "Depends. Why don't I buy your shares?" Hu Xiansheng laughed dryly and said, "I'll use the research institute to buy in, 60 to 40%. I'll buy 60-40, if it doesn't work, how about 50 to 50? I'm not interested." "No, then. 40 to 60 is fine too. Suyu smiled and said, forget it, Dean, I don't want to buy it. I'll build it myself later. Hu Xiansheng was too depressed and a little reluctant. He thought for a moment and said, how about this, I can sell it to you, but we have to add another one. When I have money, I can redeem it at the original price. Yes, but not in 10 years. Suyu smiled and said, otherwise, if I move in today and you come to redeem it tomorrow, won't I be unlucky? 10 years, that's fine too. 10 years was not considered long. Moreover, 10 years might not be enough for him to accumulate so many merits. Hu Xiansheng was a little disappointed and said, I came to get you to join the company, but I sold the research institute. If I die, I won't have the face to meet my old friends. Sold it. After decades of research, he had to seal it up. He had no choice but to seal it up. He had spent too much money, but he hadn't made much progress. Now, he was at the end of his rope. He had originally thought that since Suyu came from the Divine Literature Department, would he sponsor it? In the end, he realized that he had thought too much. The other party had calculated very shrewdly. He knew clearly how much money he owed. This kid had long set his sights on him. It was just enough for him to pay off his debts. After paying off his debts, he was penniless. If he wanted to set up a research institute, he wouldn't have the capital to do so. Daming Manor had supported him a lot. If he set up another research institute, the Zhu family probably wouldn't be able to fork out any money. Sigh. With a sigh, Hu Xiansheng appeared to be a little disappointed. His spirit and energy were all gone. Suyu knew that this old man was just pretending to be pitiful. At this moment, he was probably really sad. Just like the Wentan Research Center. When the academy was about to close, Bai Feng wouldn't agree even if he died. The academy had stopped supporting the research center. Hong Tan had personally gone to the heavenly battlefield to kill the demi-human race and captured the demi-human race to sell their blood. All of this was for the research center to continue operating. Unfortunately, this dean who might not have the ability to do so. Even if he did, the research center would burn even more money. He couldn't afford it. Hu Xiansheng was lost for a moment. He quickly said, Suyu, you are also a student of the Multi-Divine Literature Department. Although you came from the Great Xia Mansion, the world's Multi-Divine Literature Department is a family. Nowadays, there aren't many people from the Multi-Divine Literature Department in the major manors. Look, if you open a research institute, can you recruit some students from the Multi-Divine Literature Department to do chores? Life will be difficult. Suyu smiled and said, we'll see how it goes. If there's a need, I will. He didn't make a promise. There were many divine languages in the world. It was just a saying. Suyu didn't have feelings for the many divine languages, but for the few who were from the many divine languages department. All right then. Hu Xiansheng didn't say anything else. When are we going to take a look? In a few days. If the dean has anything that needs to be moved, move it first. Otherwise, when I arrive, I'll take it all. Of course, some important things can't be taken away. Otherwise, I wouldn't have spent so much money to buy it. All right then. Hu Xiansheng felt even more disappointed. My research institute is gone. From now on, I only have the Primordial Spirit Research Institute left. Before leaving, Hu Xiansheng suddenly thought of something and said, oh right, I almost forgot. You are a junior researcher now, so you have an obligation to do so. Even if you don't bring any students with you, you might still have to conduct lectures. As for you, teach? Suyu was slightly taken aback. I still have to teach. Teach. All right, I got it. Thank you for the reminder, Principal. What can I teach? I don't have enough knowledge, so I'm not as good as those old students. Of course, I'm only talking about some aspects. Putting everything else aside, in terms of cultivation techniques and knowledge, Su Yu could be said to be top-notch. Ordinary Ling Yun might not be as knowledgeable as him. If it really did not work out, he could just casually hold a class to talk about the knowledge of opening the divine aperture. This was enough, and Su Yu did not feel guilty. Seeing that he agreed readily, Hu Xianqing did not say anything more and quickly disappeared. Before he left, he even sighed. He wished that Su Yu would ask him to stay and say that he was joking just now. He was willing to give away hundreds of thousands of merit points. Well, he was obviously disappointed. Su Yu did not have such intentions at all. After he left, Su Yu laughed and a small furball appeared in his hand. He pinched it and said with a smile, "My luck is not bad. That research institute is a good place. It would take time for the sun and moon to break through." 350,000 merit points was not a loss and it was very profitable. It was good that he bought it himself so that he did not owe too much to the Zhu family, even though he had already owed a lot during the Battle of Starfall Mountain. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 11-12 11-12 Chapter 267 Entering the Daming Institute of Civilization 1. Anping Calendar Year 351, 15th January. The date of the opening of each university. Half a month of holidays passed and the new semester began. The Daming Institute of Civilization was an incomparably huge university. Early in the morning, the university that had been quiet for half a month started to boil and become noisy. The entrance of the huge and magnificent academy was also bustling with noise and excitement. In the air, a huge flying puppet landed, and on the ground, swift and fierce beasts rushed over. As soon as those flying beasts arrived, they quickly turned into pieces of iron. Students began to enter the academy one after another. Bai Junqing is here. Below, someone saw a figure on a flying beast in the air and immediately shouted excitedly, "Bai Junqing has broken through to the sky realm. He's really amazing. So cool. Stop shouting. He's flying with his physical body, but his willpower is still recuperating. What's so great about that?" Everyone spoke one after another. Soon, a handsome young man landed on the ground and the flying bird disappeared. Bai Junqing's face was full of smiles and was incomparably brilliant. Just as he landed, in the distance, a chubby young man, who was also Zhu Hongliang. He laughed loudly and said, "Bai Junqing, your physical body is already in the air. It's better for you to go to Zhangjing College. Your Bai family is a warrior. Why are you going to the Institute of Civilization? Are you afraid of death? Tell me, are you afraid of going to the front line?" Bai Junqing's face turned black. He snorted and said, "You're the one who's afraid of death. Who says my Bai family doesn't have a civilized master? My cousin is a civilized master." Zhu Hongliang laughed and said, "Your cousin is in the heavenly battlefield. Why aren't you going? You're also in the air. Go." Bai Junqing was speechless and said angrily, "I'll go sooner or later." The two of them were arguing with each other. At this moment, someone shouted, "Zhujiu, is Su Yu coming to Daming Manor? Where is he? Is he coming to our academy? Why haven't I seen him yet?" Zhu Hongliang laughed and said, "Of course he's coming. How can it be fake? He looks just average. Everyone, don't look forward to it. It's useless to look forward to it. He's such a boring fellow. He's strong." Zhu Hongliang laughed and said, "He's strong, but we civilized masters don't rely entirely on strength. I think he looks more like a fighter and doesn't have many tricks up his sleeves." As expected, the Bai family taught him the style of a fighter. As he spoke, someone behind him chuckled and said, "Your Highness, it's not good to speak ill of others behind their backs." Zhu Hongliang's face stiffened. Holy shit! When did this fellow come over? He turned around and saw Suyu with his hands behind his back and a smile on his face. He was just looking at him. Zhu Hongliang immediately felt a little embarrassed. At this moment, someone seemed to recognize him and hurriedly shouted, "Everyone, come quickly. Suyu is here. Suyu is here. Come quickly and take a look. The homicidal maniac is here. Don't shout, he's still here." Chaos broke out. There were more and more people in the surroundings, all of them looking at Suyu as if they were curious. He was also human. He didn't even have a nose or two eyes. Why was he so powerful? Do you guys think that he would be unhappy with people and kill them with a single slash? Be careful, everyone, stay away from him. Don't be afraid, there are too many of us. Suyu was very tired. He was a living person, and the civilized masters of Daming Prefecture were a bunch of lunatics. He could even sense that many of the teachers were mixed in with the crowd and were watching the show. What was there to watch? If he had known, he would have sneaked into the academy. Just as he was thinking, Bai Feng's cousin, Bai Junsheng, suddenly said, "You are my nephew, Suyu." Suyu glanced at him without any expression. Bai Junsheng seemed to be a little stiff. This gaze was not very friendly. "I'm Bai Feng's younger brother. I'll call you nephew. Is there a problem with seniority?" Bai Junsheng felt a little guilty. There was no problem. According to seniority, you're my nephew. Why are you looking at me like that? Suyu smiled and said, "There's an orderly succession of teachers. I'm teacher Bai Feng's student, but, other than the relationship between teachers, student Bai, the rest should just go their own way. I don't want to have an uncle for no reason." Bai Junsheng was a little embarrassed. Boring. Boring. Suyu was also speechless. He realized that the civilized teachers in Daming Prefecture might really lack some social beatings. In the Great Xia Civilized Academy, when those students saw genius students or top 100 students, who wouldn't obediently give way and avoid them. Watch the show. If you watch them, do you believe that they will challenge you to a fight and beat you to the ground? However, it was also good. It seemed that these people were just watching the show and didn't have any bad intentions. If they just watched the show, they would probably disperse later. Just as Suyu was thinking about it, in the next moment, he witnessed the fickleness of these guys. "Everyone, quickly go and take a look." The big round ball at the biological park gave birth to 3 small balls. What? It's born. Male or female? 3, damn, I bet it gave birth to 5 last time. Quickly go and take a look. Besides Suyu, Zhu Hongliang was also interested. He was about to run away when he thought of something. He hurriedly turned to look at Suyu and said, "Are you going?" The big round ball is a very beautiful bear. It gave birth to a cub. I thought it could only give birth to one last time. On the other side, someone shouted, "I don't care about that. I only care about who the big round ball is hooking up with and who the fathers of the small round balls are. Everyone, let's go and check it out. I suspect it's that big bear." Nonsense. I guess it's that flying tiger that often plays with the big round ball. In Suyu's dumbstruck state, a group of people ran frantically in one direction, afraid that they would be too late and have nowhere to look.